Chapter 7 Attempt 1 at Therapy no Jutsu. My fingers trailed down the delicate stitches on Haku's chest. Haku was sitting up in his bed, an exorbitant amount of pillows behind and around him, as well as many flowers, fruit baskets, and little knick-knacks. Naruto had advertised to the people of Wave that it was Zabuza who had personally slain the evil tyrant, which earned the missing nin a big shiny pedestal to stand on above them. Not even a day later did they find out about his precious student, and in hopes of showing gratitude, the people showed up with many gifts for the duo. It was left unsaid that not even a week ago Zabuza and Haku had been out for Tazuna's head. "It looks like we're out of the woods," I finally said. Haku smiled warmly at me, and Zabuza let out a small gruffing noise to my right. The missing nin had played nursemaid to his student the past couple of days, allowing me to nurse his own wounds in the process as well. He too sat in a bed with many fluffy pillows propped around him. No infection and no signs of rejection. "You'll have to be careful for a while longer, but I feel pretty confident that in a couple days I'll be able to heal the wound shut and we can take out the stitches." "Thank you, Sakura-sensei," Haku politely said, a serene smile still on his face. "I owe you," I shushed him by smushing his cheeks together so his lips puckered out. "I know. No need to say it anymore, Haku. You know exactly how to thank me if you choose to." Haku nodded his head and I removed my hands. "Yes. I have thought it over and I am very honored to be invited into your harem. I will gladly accept." I squealed. "Fantastic. How about you, Zabuza?" "I'm not joining some goddamn harem." "So that's a yes?" Zabuza gave me a withering glare. "You're going to act as though I'm part of you harem regardless of what I actually say, aren't you?" "Yes." Zabuza let out a long sigh. "I don't care anymore. We're even by this, you annoying Dr. Brat." I squealed in delight, again moving over and throwing my arms around his neck. "Get off, you stupid, shut up, and accept my love and affection," I ordered him as I started to nuzzle. "I love you guys." "Die in a fire," Zabuza grouched, glaring balefully at the giggling Haku. He unhooked my arms around his neck and promptly shoved me away from him. I landed on my bum, still beside myself with happiness that I had successfully coerced two awesome people into my personal harem. I stood back up, beaming at both of my patients. "I'll let you two get some more rest. If you need me, I'll be in town at the clinic." "Of course, Sakura-sensei," Haku murmured. "Have a pleasant day." "You too, cutie." Scene change. Since the 2 days of Gato's demise, the town had transformed. Everyone rallied together to finish the bridge. Unfortunately, Kakashi and Zabuza's battle had caused some structural damage to the bridge, which pushed its completion date back another week, despite having numerous workers helping out. All of Gato's previous thugs were rounded up by the villagers, and Naruto and Sasuke each thrown into the makeshift prison to be awaiting whatever justice the village decided to award them. Gato's mansion was ransacked and the money was distributed fairly evenly. A large sum of it went to Zabuza and Haku as thanks for killing him, and another large portion actually came to us. Tazuna insisted paying us for doing a proper job. With the monopoly on Wave effectively destroyed, a few villagers sent out invitations to merchants to come to Wave in hopes of re-establishing a healthy economy. The village itself had an optimistic and cheerful atmosphere, with everyone frantically trying to repair what they could in hopes of enticing more merchants and other necessities. I was given Kakashi's permission to resume my post as their doctor, and much to my surprise and utter joy, he actually had Pakken sit with me. It would turn out that Pakken had learned anatomy with Kakashi and was damn good at sniffing out infections. Not to mention, I sincerely felt better having someone else supervise my work. Especially someone so unbelievably adorable and who would reward me for doing a good job by letting me squeeze his paws. Naruto and Sasuke still alternated guarding Tazuna. I wasn't sure what Sasuke did when he wasn't on guard duty, but I knew that Naruto helped around the village however he could when he wasn't on guard duty. Kakashi was another mystery. I would wake him each morning, examine him, and after giving my okay, I knew very well that he was only humoring me, and we both knew that he didn't need my permission to do anything. He left. Where to I hadn't a clue, but Pakin was able to alert him if there was any kind of emergency, so I wasn't concerned too much about it. The clinic had been one of the first things the villagers had fixed up for me, and I had many wonderful people offer me their assistance whenever I needed it. One of the women actually made me another doctor's coat since my previous one had been ruined by the failed attempt to save those two men. I had my hair pushed back with my Hittite 8 in order to keep the bangs out of my face. My hands worked quickly as I sutured a boy no older than myself. He had slipped on the rocks by the dock and split open his calf. It was deep enough to require stitches, but it didn't sever anything too important or cause enough damage to warrant using my shosen. Instead, I numbed the area and began my stitches. The boy watched me work with transfixed eyes, his friends flanking either side of him. "You're gonna have to tell your Kaa-chan," I told him, neatly pressing the flabs of skin together while I worked. His face screwed up in obvious distaste while the other boys snickered at him. "Can't you make it like it never happened, sensei? It's healthier to allow your body to regrow at its natural rate," I told him. "The wound isn't severe enough to warrant any more chakra aside from numbing. It won't even scar." He whined. "What? That's so lame. All this, and not only am I going to be killed by Ka-san, but I'm not even going to get a scar out of it? If you want a scar so bad, just play with fire," I told him. Pakin wheezed out a laugh. "What kind of doctor tells her patient to play with fire?" "Only the best kind, of course," I told him flippantly. "There we go. Let me write you up a note so your Ka-chan knows how to take care of you." One of his friends sniggered. "Yeah. Wouldn't want him to get too much worse after she blisters his butt." That got a groan from my patient and a snicker from the other friend. I reached over, pausing in my rapid writing, and sympathetically patted my patient. "After your spanking, be sure to ice your bum-bum." "Hi sensei," the trio chorused. "On your way out, please send in my next patient." They all gave varying degrees of affirmation as they left. I popped my knuckles and stretched out in my creaky chair. The clinic was small and I was only using one tiny room to take care of patients. It smelled musty, was almost entirely made of wood, and the floorboards were heavily stained. I loved it. As the next patient entered the room, I reached over and picked up Pakin and began to nuzzle the top of his head. Cutest puppy ever. Pakin accepted my love like the cute badass he was. "Good afternoon, sensei," greeted a beautiful young woman. She brushed back her long green hair and sat down on the bed. "Happy Saturday, Nei-san," I returned, smiling brightly at her. "How can I help such a pretty lady today?" She blushed. I'm late." "Oh," I wittily responded, reaching over and placing a hand over her lower abdomen. A heartbeat passed and I pulled back. "Congratulations, Nei-san." Her eyes lit up and she let out a quiet gasp. "So I nodded my head. "You have a second chakra network developing inside of you. Let me consult my book and I can give you a due date if you'd like." She nodded her head enthusiastically. "This is so wonderful. Yuri-chan will be so happy." "Congratulations again," I repeated, standing up and putting Pakin in my seat. I headed over to my backpack and rummaged through to try and find my book on the reproductive system. There it is. That was how my days went by for the remainder of our time in Wave. I would make my rounds on our team, including Zabuza and Haku, then I would spend the rest of my time at the clinic tending to whoever needed care. There were a couple more cases that required more expert hands than my own, but for the most part one was able to work independently with Pakin supervising. The day we were about to leave was the day that Haku was able to leave his bed. All of us had gathered at the end of the bridge with quite the send-off. Some of the younger children had woven a beautiful flower crown for me after I fixed their Kaa-chan and 2-chan boo-boos. On the day of our departure, they had woven a fresh one for me that I wore proudly. It seemed like the entire village had gathered to send us off with Zabuza and Haku right at the front. Haku was leaning on a single crutch. He was on severely strict orders to rest as much as possible. I would have put him in a wheelchair if I could. Kakashi stood the furthest away from our group, his hands in his pocket. Naruto and I easily and happily lapped up the attention while Sasuke seemed more inclined to inching further and further away from the crowd of people. "We owe a lot to you," Tazuna said loudly, instilling a hush over the crowd. "Not only did you protect and help make this bridge, but through your efforts this village's greatest and longest nightmare is finally over." This caused a round of cheering and thunderous stomping behind him. Tazuna lifted his hand for silence again, smiling widely. "You helped us, healed our sick, and took care of us. Without you none of this would be possible. Without you we wouldn't have hope. Thank you, Shinobi of Konoha." In a gesture of our appreciation, we decided to name the bridge Seven's Hope so we may never forget the hope Team 7 has brought us. The crowd roared its approval. I took Naruto's hand and in perfect sync the two of us bowed to the crowd. Thank you very much." Mama," Kakashi said, placing a hand on the top of each of our heads. "We should be heading out. I want to reach Konoha before it gets dark." "Woohoo! Wait until Gigi hears about this," Naruto boasted, hopping from one foot to the other in excitement. I winked at Haku and Zabuza. "Don't miss me too much, you hot people, you." Haku laughed quietly while Zabuza sneered at me. Haku hobbled towards us, an incredibly attractive smile on his face. "Thank you all for what you have done. I'm certain we will meet again one day, and I look forward to that day." "Oh, stop it," I said lightly, hitting his shoulder. "You're gonna make me blush with that kind of talk." A spark of amusement entered his eyes, and faster than what I could process he placed a warm kiss on my cheek. Naruto let out a gasp of sheer horror while I got many catcalls from the crowd. A blush rose up to my cheeks. "You can do that again." Haku laughed. "I wouldn't want to keep you." "Have a safe trip, Sakura-chan." I sighed. Just got my harem started up and I already have to abandon members for a while. "Kakashi-sensei, I need a comfort hug." "You already had your hug for the day," Kakashi said patiently. "You'll have to wait until tomorrow." I whined. Sasuke sighed. "Can we leave now?" "Scene change, and we're back," I said as we entered the gates of Konoha. My hand moved on its own and grabbed Kakashi's. "It's dark and scary at night. Walk me home, please?" "Nope," Kakashi said cheerfully, yanking his hand out of my own like it was on fire. "Report to the Hokage's tower at 0600 tomorrow to give you reports. Later, minions." "I'll walk you home," Naruto offered happily after Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. I beamed. "Excellent." I held out my arm. "This will give you good practice for when you're dating your future wife." Naruto hooked his arm through mine. "Who's that?" I patted his arm. "The same girl who currently has a crush on you." Naruto gasped. "Someone has a crush on me?" "Yes. And if you prove that you're mature enough to be a good boyfriend, I'll tell you who. This girl has had a crush on you since the first year of the academy. She believes you'll make the best Hokage ever even." "She sounds perfect," Naruto whispered in awe. "She is," I agreed. "Now walk me home like the gentleman I know you are deep down inside." "Yes, ma'am." Scene change. I entered the kitchen around 5 the next morning, greeted by the smell of pork and eggs. Sakura's mother, Kaya-chan, was making an omelette. She beamed when she saw me enter. "Good morning, Sa-chen. I have big breakfast ready for you." "Extra meat?" I asked hopefully. "Extra pork," Kaya-chan promised. It was a little weird associating the word mother with a woman I didn't really know. I had maybe a quarter of Sakura's memories and I was still relatively detached from them. Mother was distant and viewed me more as a pet for her project rather than an actual daughter. Not that I was complaining, of course. I had shelter, food, and she was a firm believer in buying people's affection, so I had an impressive collection of materialistic items. Father went AWOL from his center and I hadn't seen him in over a decade. Sakura's Kaa-chan, though, was very warm and prone to physical affection. So was her Tu-chan and pretty much her entire family. They were prone to using their fists too when angered, but never out of malice. I sat down at the worn wooden table and Kaa-chan placed a bowl of steaming eggs, pork, cheese and veggies in front of me. She then poured me a glass of fresh lemonade, because the woman was a dedicated gardener and nurtured 2 cherry blossom trees and 3 lemon trees, before she sat down beside me, a happy smile on her face. Tell me more about your mission. In between wolfing down the delicious food and chugging the lemonade, I told her everything that happened on the mission. I left out the part where I failed to save the men with gangrene because that shit was depressing and no one wanted to hear about depressing shit, unless they were in an angsty mood, which we certainly were not. She oohed and awed and squealed happily at all the right parts. Since I had come home so late last night, she and Tu-chan didn't push for more than brief assurances that I was okay and everything went okay. How exciting, Kaa-chan sighed. What a romantic life you lead. Are you happy, little flower? Of course I am, I told her. Are you? Amen. I'm very happy for you. Let's not tell Tu-chan about Haku though, nah? That made me snigger. A companionable silence filled the homey kitchen while I continued to eat and Kaya-chan pulled out her crochet supplies. When I was finished eating, she asked, would you like more? I'm full enough, I reassured her. After the debriefing, I'm going to try and train with Hina-chan today. Training ground 5, right? Right. She smiled brightly. Okay. Be sure to tell her and your teammates they're welcome to come over for lunch or dinner. I will, I promised. After a brief hesitation, I bent down and kissed her forehead. Bye-bye. Have fun, Sa-chan. Scene change, Team 7 gathered at the entrance to the Hokage's tower at exactly 600. Kakashi appeared in a whirl of leaves right on the dot, his favorite book nowhere in sight. With an excited giggle, I threw myself at my favorite sensei, using up my allotted physical contact of the day for a tight hug. When I began to nuzzle into him, Kakashi decided I had had my fun and began the process of prying me off him. I allowed him to do so, letting out a reluctant sigh. One day you will crave my hugs. Mark my words. I very much doubt that, Kakashi responded dubiously. Okay team, let's head inside. Have you all finished writing your reports? I even drew pictures, Naruto exclaimed, holding out his crumpled papers. A quick glance from them made me whistle of appreciation. The prankster was a better artist than me. I'm sure Hokage-sama will be happy to look at your pictures, Kakashi responded, and I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or sincerely believed that the Hokage's notorious soft spot for Naruto would cause him to enjoy the pictures. What are we doing after we give the report? Sasuke asked as Kakashi began to hurt us inside. I purposely stopped short right before him in hopes he would bump into me, but the ex-umbu saw that coming and was prodding my back with the blunt end of a kunai. I pouted at him. Kakashi pushed the kunai further, enforcing me to keep up with his pace and stay a good arm's length in front of him. I'm not sure. Protocol would dictate that any time a mission escalates a rank, the team is required to take a 3-day resting period minimum. Given that none of us were seriously injured and had time to rest up the following week, it may be possible the Hokage will waive the rule for us. If he does waive it, what will we do? I asked, smiling brightly. Can we train together more? I want to learn a ninjutsu. Jinjutsu would be okay too, I guess. Oh, and I want to learn kenjutsu and we'll see, Kakashi interrupted. Sakura-chan? You know how to act in front of the Hokage, right? I morphed my face into an innocent expression. Whatever do you mean, Kakashi-sensei? I would treat Hokage-sama like all my superiors. You understand that I am technically your superior, right? Kakashi asked slowly. I purred. You can be whatever you wanna be, baby. Okay, Kakashi said loudly. Sakura-chan, no talking please. Naruto sniggered at my betrayed look while Sasuke turned his head to hide his smirk. We had reached the Hokage's office. Scene change. I remained quiet as my teammates gave detailed reports of the mission. Naruto even turned to specific pictures in his report to show the Hokage. Hiruzen interrupted a few times to ask some pointed questions, and when it was first mentioned that Kakashi allowed us to carry on with an A-rank mission, Hiruzen gave a very pointed look towards the ex-Umbu captain. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought that the grandfather had even leaked some killing intent towards Kakashi, but that couldn't be the case, could it? And what is your take on the mission, Sakura-san? Hiruzen inquired. You have been largely silent. I felt my teammates stiffen around me, and I smiled widely. Pretty great. I got my harem started up. Amusement entered the Hokage's eyes as I felt Sasuke sigh and Naruto try to cover his laughter. Did you now? Yes, I confirmed happily. I have every intention of being the next mega super pervert, you know. You know, I trained the original mega super pervert, Hiruzen told me, seeming to find my excitement humorous. Oh, I know, I assured him. Jiraiya-sama is amazing. I wish I could read his works, but apparently I turned and shot a glare at Kakashi. I'm too young and someone won't buy them for me. The dilemma of age, Hiruzen uttered. Truly, what a shame. I'm surprised no one has told you, though, that those of Chunin rank and above are considered legal adults in Konoha's eyes, and as such you would legally be allowed to purchase those books once you become a Chunin. I gasped in the same moment. Sasuke moaned. Naruto couldn't hide his laughter anymore, and Kakashi whispered despairingly, why would you tell her that? I am so going to become a Chunin, I declared, my next goal set before me. And then I shall have an Aika fest and use all the pickup lines learned from it on Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi buried his face in his hands. Hiruzen chuckled. I'm quite glad to hear that, and I look forward to watching you succeed. Succeed in becoming a Chunin? That too, Hiruzen agreed. I felt Kakashi twitch behind me and the veteran cleared his throat. Do you have any further questions for us, Hokage-sama? So will Kakashi be part of your relevant? Kakashi pleaded. Any relevant questions, Hokage-sama, please? I leaned forward and whispered to Hiruzen, I think we're making the poor dear uncomfortable. It would appear so, Hiruzen murmured, sighing. I have no further. Hiruzen sniffed. Relevant questions for your team. Take the standard 3 days off, collect your mission pay and report back here for your next mission. We saluted. Dismissed except for Kakashi. Naruto-kun, Sasuke-san and Sakura-kun, have a pleasant day. The three of us shuffled out of the office and it clicked shut behind us. Now what? Naruto asked. I'm going to wait for Kakashi-sensei, I decided. I have a few hours before I have to meet up with Hina-chan to train anyway. I'm going to train, Sasuke said slowly. Then I guess, hey, I interrupted, you two should train together. And learn like water walking. What? Naruto asked. Water walking. You know how Zabuza was able to stand on the water? And remember the tree exercise? Water walking is doing the tree exercise except on water. It's the next level to chakra control. And you two seem to do better when you're competing with one another. So I say you two should go down to our training grounds and go practice water walking. The two boys exchanged glances, both looking reluctant. I'll bring you guys homemade lunch before I train with Hina-chan, I bribed. Okay, Naruto decided, nodding his head. I guess I can work with the bastard long enough for lunch. Sasuke shrugged. I suppose ravioli is acceptable for lunch if I have to train with this idiot. Consider it done, I promised. The two boys looked at each other once more before they began to head off. Not even a minute into their travel, and I could already hear them bicker. The familiar noise made me feel a bit nostalgic. I sat down on the rough carpet leaning against the closed door. I shifted so my backpack was in my lap and I opened it to pull out my next sewing project. A solid half an hour passed by in relative silence before the door opened behind me and I fell into the office and onto Kakashi's feet. Kakashi looked down at me and I smiled up at him. Hello. Kakashi rubbed at the back of his head. Did you wait for me? Of course I did, I told him, surprised. He seemed sincerely stunned. I love you. Why wouldn't I wait for you? The fact that I waited for him must have really thrown him for a loop because Kakashi's visible eye widened marginally and he stiffened considerably. Right then, make sure you train and we'll meet up again after our vacation is over. Bye. Then he was gone and I heard Hiruzen's wheezing laughter from the office. Still laying on the floor, I raised my hands in a greeting to our Hokage and waved them around excitedly. Hi Hokage-sama. Hello Sakura-chan, Hiruzen chuckled. Scene change, Hinata's eyes were wide with astonishment and a little bit of awe. That sounds so amazing, Sakura-chan. Our C rank wasn't anywhere near as daring. I beamed at my dear friend. It was definitely fun. How have you been though? Done any more training? Hinata nodded her head hesitantly. I've been practicing releasing tenketsu blocks like you said. I'm not very good. I smushed her cheeks together so she couldn't finish what she was saying. You are a brilliant kunoichi. Say it with me. I am a brilliant kunoichi. I am a brilliant kunoichi. With a smile, I released her. Good. Keep practicing until you can release the blocks without using your hands. Trust me. You're gonna need this skill for later. Okay, Hinata murmured agreeably. You Sakura-chan? Yes, dear? My two sama are requested to meet with you. I cocked my head. Okay. When does he want to meet? He didn't specify. Okay, we'll end training a bit earlier today and then I'll go meet him, I decided. With that settled, let's get started. I wanna be hella strong for the upcoming exams. Hinata giggled while I began to flex my biceps. Look at these guns. Show me your guns, Hina-chan. Still giggling, she held out her arm for me to squeeze her biceps. She was already a fairly fit girl at the start of training, but under Irika's advised regime there was a noticeable difference. She was leaner and more toned, not to mention her hands were thoroughly calloused enough so that she didn't have to typically wear gauze after our sessions anymore. The difference for me at the start of training was astronomical. Sakura had been starving her body of necessary nutrients in her misguided attempts to look pretty, and she did not work out in the slightest outside of the required academy hours. The drastic change in routine did wonders for the growing body. I had proper fat and muscles now. I felt immensely proud of myself for the transformation. Hinata and I had reached a milestone in our physical development, and it warranted a little self-praise and ego grooming. It also signified that we would be able to take our training to the next level. Tomorrow, I told her, still poking at her arms. It seemed she was a little ticklish and her giggles were so contagious and delightful I couldn't resist. We shall pick out training weights since we're now properly strong enough that we won't damage our muscles by using them. I stopped tickling the princess long enough for her to catch her breath. She was wheezing, curled up in the fetal position with a happy smile on her face. Oh, okay. With energy that would put an Uzumaki to shame, I leapt up and clapped my hands together. All right. Let's do some hardcore sparring now. Hinata rolled onto her back, a gleam in her eyes. I promise not to block your tenketsus. I bowed, offering my hand out to her. I thank you for your kindness, milady. With mock grace she took my hand and stood back up, brushing off the dirt on her clothes and readjusting them. Oh, on the count of 3? I beamed. 1, 2, 3. We leapt at each other, determined smiles on our faces. Scene change, owie owie owie, I whined as Hinata slowly stitched my left arm closed. Hinata's chakra control was superb enough that she could learn the Shosen and become an Iryonin, but she chose not to because she honestly wanted to become an accomplished frontline fighter and focus on her clan techniques. I personally thought she would have made a rockin' Iryonin, and we could have been the duo sexy doctor nurse, which would have been awesome, but I wasn't going to pressure her into changing her mind. She got enough discouragement everywhere else, I would never add on to that. That being said, I did insist that she had some basic first aid training, including emergency sutures and amputations. During our spar we had both nicked the other plenty with our kunai. While I could heal up our injuries no problem with Shosen, I chose not to in order to give Hinata hands-on experience with stitching. I didn't want to numb the area either, so I could immediately tell her if she was doing something incorrectly or if she accidentally punctured something that should have been left alone. Sorry, Hinata apologized. Don't be sorry, I told her. I'm just being a crabby patient. You really got me good. Sorry, Hinata apologized again. With one hand I'd smushed her cheeks together, causing her to pause in her work. Never apologize for being good at something silly. I'm proud of you for what you did here today. I felt her face warm underneath my hand, and when I withdrew it I saw a pleasant flush on her cheeks. I smiled warmly at her and she returned it with one of her own. Comfortable silence fell between us as she worked on stitching me up, then dressing my wounds. I had a fair amount of gauze covering my body at that point. My entire upper right arm, my entire left arm, my right calf, stomach, both feet and hands, and even some wrapped around my head. My black training capri pants were torn at the edges and I had a gash through my midsection, tearing open my red cami. Hinata was equally as battered and covered in gauze as I was. When we were both all doctored up, the sun had just started its descent over the horizon. I stood up wincing at the sensation and said, "All right, let's go meet with your two-chan." Hinata looked up and down at me, an eyebrow raised. Either we meet him like this or I go to him in a bathrobe first thing tomorrow morning. She covered her mouth in a useless attempt to hide her smile. I suppose then that it would be best to meet with him now. I offered her my arm and she took it daintily. Right you are, milady. Right you are. Scene change, gingerly I took a seat across from Hayashi. I winced as I felt the stitches stretch across my arm and abdomen. Hayashi watched me with a focused gaze, his face a perfect mask of apathy. Hinata fidgeted beside me, her gaze steadily looking down. My eyes roamed across the pristine office, taking in how everything was meticulously organized, and if I didn't know any better I would say that no one had used it for years. It looked detached and entirely without life. Reminds me of home, I briefly thought. I'm thirsty. Hinata's back stiffened. I can go get, please provide our guest with some refreshments, Hinata, Hayashi said softly. Hinata nodded jerkily before she left quickly. As soon as she left I glared at Hayashi. You oughta be ashamed of yourself. Excuse me? Hayashi's eyes narrowed. What kind of father psychologically harasses and hurts his own daughter? I demanded. No wonder people think the Hyuga have stick up their asses and think they're the next fucking Uchiha. Their own clan head treats his own daughter like a piece of shit. Hayashi's cheeks flushed in anger and he hissed, "You have no." I leaned forward and put both my hands on his desk, entirely nonplussed. I don't care if you're socially awkward with children or if your own father treated you like this. You're smart enough to know that your disinterest, disapproval, and all-around jackassery is debilitating to Hina-chan. Yet you still do it anyway. You have no right. Hayashi thundered, a vicious glower on his face. Killing intent poured from him, but it didn't even faze me. I have every right, I snarled back. I see firsthand the kind of damage you caused her. She's not some toy for you to toss aside because she doesn't meet your pathetic standards. Humans are not things that conform to ideals. Each human is different. You can't expect Hina-chan to learn and grow in the same kind of way you and your brother did, can you? No. You absolutely cannot. This whole village formed with the idea of providing children the ability to grow in a nurturing and safe environment. Yet you spit on that ideal every time you treat your own daughter like garbage because of some arbitrary and fucking stupid ideals that are hella outdated. If you keep up with your fucking child abuse, you're going to lose her. You're going to lose Hina-chan in a way that you will never get her back. So you better get your shit straight and start acting like the proper Tu-chan that she deserves, or you'll find yourself dealing with me again. And I promise your underwear will never feel safe again, I snarled. I will devote every waking moment of my life to making your life as miserable as you have made hers. I swear. Hayashi's body trembled with restrained anger, and the venom in his following words was impressive. Get out. Gladly I snapped. I stood up, threw open the door, and found myself face to face none other than a gobsmacked Teen 10 along with an extremely uncomfortable-looking guy. I nodded to them, then brushed past them and to a positively petrified Hinata. I smiled at her and blew her a kiss. Take care, dearie. I'll be by tomorrow to pick you up for training. B, Hinata squeaked. With a spring in my step, I left the Hyuga compound. I'm in the mood for some ice cream. Ooh. Yes. Scene change, I'm here to pick Hina-chan up for training, I chirped to the Hyuga guards. They both exchanged glances before one of them left. 3 minutes passed by for Hayashi appeared at the front gate, his gaze hard. Haruno. Hina-chan's Tu-chan, I greeted coolly. Hayashi eyed me for several moments before he tilted his head, beckoning me to follow him. Cautiously I did so. He took me through the compound to a small well-hidden garden in a courtyard. There were lemon trees, an abundance of flowers, and rows of vegetables, each lovingly labeled. Hayashi took a seat on the porch, gesturing for me to sit beside him. Dubiously I did so. Since you chose to speak so plainly last night, I will grant you the same favor. I am torn between demanding compensation for your lack of civility and desiring to keep my original purpose of wanting to meet with you. Hayashi paused. I love my children. Do not ever claim otherwise. I resisted the urge to snort at that. However, Hayashi continued, a strained look briefly crossing over his face. I understand how someone on the outside would perceive it to be otherwise. Why? I asked. Why do you treat her like such if you actually love her? My late wife Izana made this garden, Hayashi said quietly. She passed away shortly after Hanabi was born. She was killed in action. She let her guard down, was tricked by the enemy. She was too gentle to be a kunoichi, and that kindness lead her to, so now you punish your daughter in hopes of what? Hardening her. Hinata is too gentle to be a kunoichi. I do not want her to be a kunoichi at all. That's complete bullshit, I told him. Hinata's way stronger than you think her to be. She's kind, and despite putting up with you apparently passive-aggressively trying to destroy her dreams, she's still tried her hardest. She hasn't given up despite her own Tu-chan treating her like garbage. She hasn't stopped loving you despite you being a complete jerk to her. That takes a special kind of strength to do that, a special kind of strength in order to forgive something like that. She's strong. Stronger than you and I could ever be. It would be best if she wasn't a kunoichi at all, Hayashi said softly. It would be best if she was loved by her Tu-chan regardless of her choices, I retorted. You tell this stuff to her. Treat her like Izana would have treated her. She doesn't have a ka-chan anymore, and right now she doesn't have a proper Tu-chan. He glanced at me. What would a proper Tu-san do then? Ask about her day, I said quietly. Attend one of our training sessions and don't focus on her mistakes. Praise what she does right. I lifted up my shirt and presented him with my large gash. She did this to me. When she's not scared shitless or feel like she's being poorly judged, she flourishes. She's damn good, Hayashi-san. Show her that you know she's good. Hayashi let out a long sigh. The reason I asked to meet with you in the first place is because of the change you brought to her. I never thought I would. Hayashi caught himself. What you did was inappropriate and incredibly rude. If you have an issue with me, it should be dealt with privately, not in public. I was about to retort when he raised his hand. That being said, I do understand why you lost your temper. You clearly care a great deal for my daughter, and you are at an emotional age that without proper training you cannot be expected to be in full control of your actions. All you saw was your friend being mistreated and you acted on the knowledge that you had. Frowning, I decided not to tell him that I had planned for my outburst for quite some time in hopes of therapy no jutsuing him. If I had kept it private, I felt like Hayashi would not have taken my concerns as seriously as having an audience. I also wanted to hurt him at least a little bit as much as he hurted Hinata. Frankly, I still planned on some kind of vengeance on her behalf, but not for a while. It would be too obvious that I had done it if I acted so soon after my outburst. I get that I hesitated, traumatized from the loss of your wife, but Hina-chan isn't his Anna. She's your daughter and she needs a two-chan. Is it really so much to ask of you to be that for her? She's not going to give up on her dreams. You've clearly tried for years to convince her otherwise. You honestly think it'll change now? No, Hayashi admitted softly. After seeing the changes brought to her by encouragement, I have been forced to reconsider many things. That being said, in regards to I'll apologize if you come to our training session today, I told him. See for yourself what being positive can do for her. Hayashi's lips twitched. Very well. I paused. You should probably try to stay hidden at the start though. If she knew you were watching, she'd probably get all nervous. That seems likely. Scene change. I watched the shy Hinata smile at her father and Hayashi award her with the faintest smile of his own. The two were headed home after our training session, both looking a lot happier than I had ever seen them. Hayashi was ready to beg for Niji's forgiveness around this point. He only needed a bit more of a push to change for the better for Hinata. And now that he'd seen her be strong, seen the potential inside of her, he'd never only see a weak little girl. At least that was what I hoped. I had done my best to encourage the bright optimism and confidence I knew she had inside of her. I had done my best to fuel her dreams, and I had done my best to give her the strength she so desperately needed. Not only to prepare her for the horror that was the Chunin exams or for the upcoming Akatsuki War, but because I sincerely believed she would be happier that way. She would be happiest with not only Naruto's acknowledgement but her own family's too. I may not have been fond of Hayashi, but I understood her desire to be loved by her only living parent. And since that was what she wanted, I would do my best to provide it. Besides, who knows what kind of influence having a positive atmosphere at home and outside of home would do for her? Scene change. I relished the feeling of blankets and warmth. The sun poured in through the window, and despite it being right in my eyes, I kept my blinds up and curtains pulled back. I simply did not want to get out of bed. Today I would go shopping with Hinata to pick out weights, and since Team 7 was still technically on leave, I had nowhere else to be aside from that. It was decided by myself that I would spend the day being utterly lazy and resting up. I am the blanket. The blanket is me. My stomach growled like the traitor it was. A moan escaped my lips. Then my bladder told me it was time to get up too. Traitor. All of me, get up, lazy ass. With another groan, I rolled out of my body and flopped to the floor, taking the blankets with me. Still bundled up, I made my way to the bathroom and then down into the kitchen. Two-chan looked up from his Sudoku, his eyes gleaming. Good morning, little flower. Good morning, I mumbled. Kai-chan entered the kitchen and kissed my cheek. Good morning, love. Let me whip you up some breakfast. Please and thank you. I sat beside Two-chan, stifling a yawn. Two-chan patted the top of my head. Another busy day of training? Probably, I admitted. Tomorrow I'm supposed to meet up with my team so we can take our next mission. Tu-chan nodded at that, then his bright green eyes lit up. Oh, that reminds me. Your friend came by and wanted to give you this. I blinked as Tu-chan hurried out of the kitchen before returning with a medium-sized box and a feminine note on top. He set both in my lap and I carefully opened the note before reading it. Sakura-chan, Tu-sama has decided to take an active role in my training once again. I know I have you to thank for that, and I cannot properly express my gratitude enough to convey how much it means to me. Thank you. I'm sorry, however, that it means that we will not be able to train together for a while. I know we were both excited to begin our weight training and go shopping together, so I hope you don't mind that I took the liberty of purchasing our weights. Let's both become strong, kunoichi. Sincerely yours, Hinata. I reread the overly formal note, wondering how embarrassed the cutie felt when writing that. The thought made my lips quirk upwards. I handed the note over to Kaa-chen as I could feel her trying to read it over my shoulder. She squealed happily when she finished reading it before handing it to Chan. I am surrounded by adorable people, I thought, resisting the urge to pinch both their cheeks. My gaze swung over to the white box and I lifted the lid. My mouth dropped open. The weights were seal weights. The single most expensive kind of weights one could buy. Standard weights were bulky and pretty obvious to the fact that they were weights. Seal weights were intricately embedded into a durable cloth-like material and transformed into things like small wristbands or akin. There were 4 articles inside the box, each of them a deep red with a little pink flower in the center, 2 wristbands and 2 for my ankles. Beside the articles were instructions and a 5-year warranty, which would not have been cheap given our line of work. With careful hands I pulled each one out and examined it. Holy smokes! What cute little wristbands, Kaa-chan exclaimed. They are cute, I agreed, not correcting her that they were more than simple wristbands. Kaa-chan, would you mind packing me a lunch and some snacks too? I think I'll be a bit late out tonight. Okay, Sa-chan. Scene change. I meandered through the streets of Konoha, my arms and legs aching something fierce. The sun had long since set and the roads had thinned out as the night wore on. I took my time making my way home. Sometimes I was so amazed by everything I saw and everything I felt. It was miraculous, a dream come true really, to have woken up in the Narutoverse right at the heart of everything. I never thought such a thing could happen, and I found myself wondering exactly how it happened. I would have considered it all to be part of one of my episodes, but my episodes never lasted this long and they were a lot more wild than the relatively tame Narutoverse. At least I didn't see any oozing walls, mountain of corpses, or sneering faces. Konoha was exactly as warm and bright as I imagined it to be. People were generally friendly and children ran about the streets entirely unsupervised. It was a very trusting environment and I felt envious of all the children who were born and raised from the start there. The smell of fried food caught my attention and I decided to indulge a little from a food stand before heading home. As I nibbled on the deliciousness, my legs and arms cursing at me for not immediately returning home to take a hot bath, I couldn't help but think I wish these kinds of days wouldn't end. It was a shame, really. But the clock kept ticking and the exams and Akatsuki drew nearer with the war right at their heels. As unavoidable as death. That thought made me smile wryly. As unavoidable as death, huh? Chapter 8. Here's a picture of Kakashi's wedding. Good morning, my lovelies, I greeted Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi had told our team last night to meet him on the Unmiai, literally meaning fate, bridge that day. He said we would be taking a break from training and moving on to something more exciting. Naruto grinned widely upon seeing me rushing over and throwing his arms around my neck. I hugged him back, equally enthusiastic. I had successfully conditioned Naruto to crave my hugs, not that it was hard, the poor darling was already so starved for attention. Good morning, Sakura-chan. I patted his back as Naruto released me, hopping from one foot to the other in anticipation. Kaa-chan actually made our lunches today. She wanted me to give you some dinner too. Naruto-chan. Naruto's eyes lit up like fireworks and he grabbed the two extremely large bento boxes from me. Sasuke gently, in comparison to Naruto at least, took his own lunch with a quiet thank you. Naruto said, I promise I'll stop by this weekend to return the boxes. Much appreciated, I said. Sasuke in turn handed me his previous bento box. The team didn't always eat together. For the past couple of weeks Kakashi alternated between a full day's worth of training or doing a few D-rank missions for half a day. On half days sometimes the three of us stayed to train, which required much bribing on my part to convince Sasuke to stay or go off on our own. I had hoped for a chance to train with Hinata again, but the two of us kept missing our chances. She sometimes stopped by my home while I was away to drop off little letters, to assure me she was okay and to encourage me not to steal her 2chan's underwear, and small gifts, such as homemade bombs, but otherwise than that we hadn't had much interaction. Naruto and Sasuke had mastered water walking within about 3.5 days of practicing. On the days that we trained together I encouraged them to spar with me while water walking. Both boys preferred sparring over any other kind of training, and sparring while water walking was one of the best ways to learn how to unconsciously use the technique, which was a vital skill. Kakashi appeared before us, his right arm lifting up as he accurately predicted my tackle hug. I glomped onto Kakashi, throwing enough weight into my takeoff he stumbled back. I wrapped my legs and arms around him, burying my face in the crook of his neck. Kakashi shifted his posture, readjusting me slightly so he could see the two boys. Good morning, my precious minions, Kakashi greeted us. Morning, sensei. Naruto exclaimed. I nuzzled. Good morning, my love. What are we doing today? Sasuke asked. Kakashi rubbed my back, quietly signaling for me to let him go. With much reluctance I began to slowly release my hold. First I unhooked my legs, then after one last nuzzle I stopped hugging him. Instead of burying my face in his neck though, I moved on to keep it firmly pressed into his chest with my arms tucked behind me, so he could still see my hands. There was a heartbeat of silence as Kakashi seemed to be deciding what to do with me before I felt him shrug. Then he said, I actually have a surprise for the three of you. I've enlisted you all in the Chunin exams. Yada. Naruto shouted, leaping up and down. You're the best, Kaka-sensei. Kakashi scratched at the back of his head with one hand, and with his other hand he presented us with 3 slips of papers. I lifted my head up long enough to grab one of the papers before I went right on back to admiring the amazingness of Kakashi as up close and personal as I could. You don't have to enter if you don't want to, Kakashi said, ignoring the snorts from Sasuke and myself, but if you do choose to enter, be sure to go to that location on the form at 1400 tomorrow. The exams are difficult, more so than anything you guys have ever faced, so don't feel ashamed if I'm getting my Aika, I whispered into his chest. You cannot throw yourself into a dangerous situation for the sake of good porn, Kakashi patiently told me. I wouldn't need to if you bought the collector's edition set for me. Oh, it's the collector's edition now? You have it, therefore I must have it too, I explained. How else can I use the pickup lines that apparently turn you on? Kakashi shook his head. I don't get turned on, Naruto, and Sasuke snorted loudly at that, at which Kakashi glared at them. I read it for the story, really. If it's such a good story, why not let Sakura read it? Sasuke questioned, cocking his head and folding his arms over his chest, bento still in hand. It'll get her off your back long enough to read the stories. Kakashi stared at him. A few days' worth of peace is not worth a lifetime terror. I just wanna love you, I whined. Your definition of loving me is illegal right now. If loving someone with all their heart is illegal, then throw me in prison forever, I cried out. Kakashi patted my head, giving me his sexy eye smile. I would if I could. They all chuckled as I dropped to my knees from the sheer weight those cruel words forced upon me. While I tried to recover, Naruto asked Kakashi, is that all you wanted us for? Yep, Kakashi answered, making the pee pop. Kakashi-sensei? I asked sweetly, many ideas beginning to swarm inside my head. Yes, Sakura-chan? The Chunin exams in between Part 1 and Part 2, are there breaks? Technically no, Kakashi said, cocking his head. The proctor may allow participants a breather, but legally speaking the exams are continuous between the first two parts. A Cheshire grin stretched across my face as I realized my plan would indeed work. Naruto turned to me. Why do you ask? You'll see, I purred. I would really rather not, Kakashi said. And he was gone and I was left crying on the inside at his lack of enthusiasm for my entirely epic plan. Sasuke shook his head, turning to face me. I was slowly getting up, my heart now recovered from the love of my life's utter disinterest and rejection. Sakura, were you able to be successful with those plants I gave you? A sheepish look crossed my face and I cringed. The Uchiha compound had a massive garden that Sasuke hired Genin to take care of for him. I had a feeling that his father actually maintained the garden previously, from offhanded comments, which really surprised me, but it would explain why Sasuke didn't uproot any in favor of another training ground after the massacre. The garden did not have flowers or vegetables, but housed a variety of hallucinogenic, poisonous, and dangerous plants. Apparently Sasuke's mother enjoyed coating her weapons in various poisons, and Sasuke's father started the garden in order to grow special poisons to woo her. What a romantic! Uchiha romance aside, the poisonous garden was something I was greatly interested in. It was difficult to find a fighting style to supplement my Iryo training. As much as I wanted to be an in-your-face frontline fighter as an Iryo nin, I had to be cautious. In all of Tsunade's books, she could not stress the importance of the Iryo nin staying alive and capable of healing her comrades. Besides, Team 7 already had 2 dedicated fighters who were powerhouses. For the sake of team dynamics and being smart, I chose not to be a frontline fighter but to embrace my support role like the team player I was. That being said, there were not a lot of offensive techniques I could add to my arsenal. I wanted to learn genjutsu, but I needed an active volunteer to practice the skill on, something of which both boys were not up for no matter the bribery offered. Without the ability to practice genjutsu consistently, that was temporarily thrown out. Next thought was ninjutsu, but Kakashi flat out rejected that idea because my chakra capacity was too low, which was steadily being rectified. Then Naruto threw out the offhand suggestion about poisons. And it was like match made in heaven. Poisons were versatile and were the perfect fit for any aspiring Iryo nin. They were not easily learned though. The only textbook on creating poisons available to someone of the genin rank held no dangerous, easily useful recipes. The most extreme poison in it was a hallucinogenic that made people intensely intoxicated for a few minutes at most before wearing off. Upon being entered into the bloodstream, it acted instantaneously, but since it wore off so quickly, it wasn't something to be relied upon. The book mostly contained various sedatives and was more focused on identifying poisons and creating antidotes. I was not deterred though, and I was determined to acquire the skill. Even if the poisons in it were not practical in an obvious sense, learning how to make poisons would be vital if I ever wanted to create my own special brew. So I needed the equipment and materials to practice making the recipes. Sasuke obliged, providing the plants in exchange for food rights to order me to be silent for an entire mission, which I forced him to already use all of his chances on our D ranks the past week. Naruto actually had a good chunk of the equipment for his elaborate pranks apparently, and the rest Ka-chan bought for me. I hedged. Technically yes. I was able to make 1 batch of the hallucinogenic and 2 sedatives. Sasuke stared at me, a slow insufferable smirk crawling across his face. Out of how many tries? I fidgeted. 39. He chuckled at my obvious embarrassment while Naruto consoled me. They must have been really hard. It's chemistry, I mumbled. And it's not like the recipe gives me step-by-step instructions. I had to do a lot of trial and error and then after the first explosion Ka-chan made me work outside and the wind kept messing me up. I'm sure Sasuke condescendingly responded. I stuck out my tongue at him. Sasuke scoffed at me. I'm heading out. I'll see you all tomorrow for the exams. Naruto nodded his head enthusiastically. Oh yeah. I gotta get ready. See you guys tomorrow. Bye, I mumbled as the duo rushed off in opposite directions. Weren't we supposed to meet Gaara today? Oh yeah. Wait. How come we didn't? How did I change that? For some reason the thought made me uneasy. I wasn't trying to actively change that encounter, yet that's what I ended up doing without even trying. The differences that should have happened were Haku and Zabuza living and Hinata and I becoming badasses way sooner than our canon counterparts. How did those things factor into preventing Naruto and Sasuke from meeting Gaara? Well, maybe we can still find him. This should be the day they come into Konoha, right? How are we supposed to find him? We're chakra sensitive, right? That's prepubescent of being chakra sensors. Surely we can try to sense Shikaku's Jinchuriki? So we just walk around the village trying to see if we can sense a big ball of malicious chakra? Got any better plans? Nope. Scene change. I must have wandered around Konoha for an hour before I got an odd tingly sensation in the back of my mind. It reminded me of a swarm of buzzing bees or a sandstorm, that kind of constant buzzing grinding noise. The odd sensation perked my interest enough that I began to feel for it. Sensing through chakra was weird. I felt like I was trying to find a dying flashlight on a hot summer day, only able to find it by feeling for its warmth, because all my other senses were non-existent. Weird. With a capital W. It was doable, but it made me feel awkward. I continued to head north in Konoha until the buzzing grinding sensation was overwhelming. My eyes roamed around, widening once I saw the source of the sensation. There they were. For a moment I was stupefied because I couldn't believe I actually found Gaara and his siblings through sensing them with my chakra. That moment did not last long, however, because I realized that Temari was arguing quietly with Kankuro, gesturing towards a map. Seeing my chance, I hurried over to them. Hi. Welcome to Konoha. You guys look lost. Need any help? I offered, my words coming out in a breathless rush. I'm always happy to help, cuties. Temari flashed me a brilliant smile. Do you know where the Sunbeam Hotel is? I nodded. Yeah, it's on the opposite side of the village. That made Temari shoot Kankuro a dirty look, at which the puppeteer shrugged. I'd be glad to take you all there. I'm Haruno Sakura. Temari offered, and these are my brothers Gaara and Kankuro. I took her hands in my own, bowing down and kissing the back of them. It is a great pleasure to meet such a beautiful kunoichi like yourself. She yanked her hands back, eyeing me oddly. Right. Lead the way, Haruno. Just Sakura, I told her, turning my back towards them and beginning to make my way through the streets. Many of the villagers unconsciously gave a wide berth to the Jinchuriki. I wasn't worried though, because Shikaku was pretty fun person. A bit sadistic, cynical and twisted, but fun. He was the perfect cross between a tsundere and a yandere. If he was an option in an otome or visual novel, I'd hop all over that fun route. Along the way I purchased a wicker basket filled with flowers and began to idly twist them into crowns. I pointed out the sights to each of them, giving them an impromptu tour. By the time we reached the hotel, I had finished 5 flower crowns. Here we are, I said with a flourish, bowing to the trio outside the hotel. Temari smirked at me. Thanks for the tour guide, Chan. I giggled at her. You're most welcome, pretty lady. I have one more thing for you all. Facing Gaara first, I took out the first crown and gently placed it atop his head. His pale gaze met my own and I could feel the tension from all 3 of them from my actions. Because I did not hold any ill intent towards Gaara and he clearly did not view me as a threat. Shikaku Karura's sand defense did not trigger. Nonplussed from the intense stare Gaara gave me, I placed crowns on Temari and Kankuro. I hope you all have a lovely stay here, I said, not even flinching when I felt Gaara's killing intent focus in on me. Temari and Kankuro winced at it, unconsciously stepping away from me. You are not scared, Gaara stated. Frowning, I turned back to face him. What kind of future best friend would I be if I was scared of you? Besides, Shikaku is a cutie too. I love you, Shikaku. Kurama loves you too, even if he's a narcissistic asshole. He's just a tsundere, you see. The perplexed look on Gaara's face was positively priceless. Silence fell between all of us before Gaara broke it by saying, Oka-san says you're lying. I placed both hands on my hips. Shikaku, what would Hagoromo say if he knew you were calling your future self-appointed mother a liar? Oka-san wants you to be quiet. That's what I thought, I retorted. Anyway, I have to head out. It was lovely meeting you all. And to reiterate, Kurama is at tsundere. Gaara tilted his head. You're making Oka-san laugh. Tell Oka-san that I call him Kurama of the Fluff too. To his face. And I plan on spanking him at some point in the future. Gaara nodded slowly, the killing intent dying off from focusing on me. Oka-san likes you. I winked. The first step into winning someone over to coerce them into a harem is to receive the parents' blessing. Not a necessary step, but it makes it easier. What? Temari whispered, entirely bewildered. Gaara will inevitably join my harem, I explained to them. There is no stopping that. Shikaku-sama will join eventually as well. What? Kankuro echoed. Oh, look at that time, I gotta go. Peace on earth and all that, bye-bye. Scene change, the Chunin exams? Ka-chan repeated, her pretty green eyes lighting up. How wonderful, Sa-chan. I beamed at my completely awesome Ka-chan, pausing in devouring my absolutely delicious meal that night in order to do so. Tu-chan reached over and ruffled my hair affectionately. That's our girl, though. The gesture made me remember another one of Sakura's memories, and I felt a surge of affection from that memory towards Ka-chan and Tu-chan. I had almost all of her childhood memories of Tu-chan and Ka-chan by that point, along with some strong attachment to said people. I sincerely wished I had these parents instead of my first set, but c'est la vie. It might seem a little odd to adopt brand new parents, especially in the way that I had done so, taking over their daughter's body, but at times it genuinely felt like I was Sakura and they were my parents. It was difficult to fight the sensation, and for brief flashes I could even forget about my first life and wholly embrace the current one. I lapped up their praise for that night, enjoying the utter love and warmth they held for us. It was a non-existent thing in my first life, so I figured I should cherish all I could get in my second life. When dinner was over, I headed up to my room and prepared for my epic plan to conquer the Chunin exams. Scene change, the next morning I took my time to double-check that I had everything prepared. I ran through my checklist several times, and only when I was satisfied did I leave to meet with the team. Naruto and Sasuke were waiting for me a little ways from the academy. Good morning. Good morning, Naruto cheerfully greeted. I placed small snacks in each of their hands. Kai-chan says that we should make sure that we have plenty of energy for the exams. Naruto gleefully began to nibble on his onigiri while Sasuke ate his at a slower pace. I shifted the weight of my backpack hands-free, as I had already eaten mine on the way there. What's in your backpack? Naruto asked, noticing how bulgy it was. Duplicates was my only response. Duplicates of your a cutie, I told him, patting his cheek before turning and heading inside the academy. I felt both of them follow behind me, taking note that Sasuke's chakra reminded me of carpet shock and Naruto's felt like a bonfire. Kakashi's chakra reminded me of the flower asphodel. Did I mention how chakra sensing was weird? Because it was. It was really, really weird. We headed up the stairs and upon rounding the corner we found an abundance of genin standing outside a room. "Please just let us through," 1010 pleaded with the fake genin who were actually chunin guarding the door. I called out I wouldn't bother people from Guy's team. "That's not the right room, it's under a genjutsu." All eyes snapped towards me and I smiled happily. 1010 Lee and Niji recognized me almost instantly because Lee gasped. "You're the brave maiden who defended your friend against Hyuga-sama." "Yes," I said, ignoring the dubious looks Sasuke and Naruto gave me. "Yes, I am. Seriously though, you guys shouldn't be bothering with that. I thought Kakashi-sensei's rivals team would be smarter than that." Lee cringed while 1010 looked sheepish and Niji turned his back on us, already walking away. "Come on my team," I said, looking over my shoulder to Sasuke and Naruto. "The real room should be upstairs." "How'd you know that?" Naruto loudly whispered to me. "I'm chakra sensitive," I answered. "And I can count." Naruto nodded sagely at my response and the three of us continued on our merry little way. "Wait," Lee called out as the three of us entered another room. We stopped as one, each turning back to face Team 9. "Your name, fair maiden?" "Haruno Sakura," I said, doing a little curtsy. "My teammates are Uzumaki Naruto." I gestured towards Naruto, who did a jovial wave, and Uchiha Sasuke, otherwise known as Duckass. Sasuke shot me a venomous look. "Go to hell, you perverted woman." "I'll save you a seat, dearie," I responded back cheerfully. "You guys are guys, kiddos, right?" "Yeah," 1010 said hesitantly. We didn't mean to listen in on your conversation with Fuga-sama." "It's quite all right," I reassured her. He needed some sense knocked into him, and being the sensible person Sasuke and Naruto snorted at that I took it upon myself to do so. "It was very brave, Sakura-san," Lee exclaimed. "I admire your courage and your beauty. Please go out with me." Sasuke was aghast. "Are you insane?" I smiled at Lee. "I've decided to wait until I'm of age to date anyone, but you can join my harem." 1010 paused. "You're not dating, but you have a harem?" "Yes." Lee was heartbroken. "Oh. If it makes you feel any better," Naruto hesitantly began, "she only has 2 people in her harem so far." 3, I corrected Naruto. "Hina-chan joined a couple weeks ago." Naruto nodded. "Okay, 3. Then he paused. "How come I'm not in the harem?" "You are welcome to join my harem, sweetie," I told him, patting his shoulder. "I view you too much as a son though to do anything. You'd be like the designated cuddle buddy in the harem." Naruto perked up. "I love cuddles. Count me in." "This is irritating." "Let's go, 1010," Niji muttered, giving me a contemptuous glare. But Lee began. "I do not wish to." 1010 grabbed Lee's hand. "Come on, Lee. You can talk to Sakura-san after the exams." I waved goodbye as Team 9 left ahead of us, quite happy with the impression I had left up upon them. I had faith that Naruto would still get his chance to therapy no jutsu Niji, but if by some odd chance that didn't happen, I was fully prepared to lock Hayashi and Niji in the same room together until they were bestest of buddies. Or blackmail them. Either way worked for me. Sasuke watched them leave for a moment before shaking his head. "I can already tell these exams are going to be a hassle." I reached over and patted his shoulder, ignoring how he instinctively flinched from my touch. As I conditioned Kakashi, I would condition Sasuke too. Not as demanding as Kakashi for a multitude of reasons, but I was determined for Sasuke to get used to hugs and physical contact in general. The lack of affection in his life after the massacre definitely played a huge role in his antisocial and borderline sociopathic tendencies. Not that I had room to judge sociopaths or anything, but I figured he would be happier all around if he had love and affection in his life on a regular basis. We moved at a lazy pace, entirely at ease and feeling confident for the exams. When we reached the last bit of stairs before the room with the exams, Kakashi appeared before us. Kaka-sensei, I cried out happily, throwing myself into his arms. He shifted his stance slightly to prepare himself for my hug tackle. For a brief moment I could have sworn he hugged me back, but the sensation lasted no more than a second, so I couldn't be sure. Far too soon for my liking, Kakashi began the process of removing me from him. I'm glad you are all here, Kakashi said, giving us the sexy eye smile. I'm proud of each of you, and I wouldn't have recommended you three to take these exams if I wasn't confident you would ace them. My heart soared at his praise. Praise whore. My hands reached out on their own towards him, and Kakashi deftly grabbed them and put them both in one of his hands. With his other hand he reached over and patted each of us on our head. I pouted at him, my bottom lip sticking out. You always end our hugs so quickly. You can hug me, Sakura-chan, Naruto happily offered. I beamed at him, turning partially towards him, as Kakashi still had a firm grip on my hands, and I took the time to wonder if his hands were simply that big or if my hands were that small. As the designated cuddle buddy, I'm always ready to give out hugs. A mischievous smile crawled its way across my face. Okay. Hey, when you see Hina-chan next, would you mind hugging her for me? I know she needs some hugs too. Naruto nodded. Yeah, sure thing. You're going to give her a heart attack, Sasuke deadpanned. My eyebrows rose. You know about her? It was painfully hard not notice a girl who literally fainted in class any time Naruto was near her, Sasuke snarked. So sassy, I said with a coy smile. Do you need a hug too, little boy? Are you jealous? Touch me and die, Sasuke crankily informed me. Oh, he so needs a hug. With a woeful sigh, I returned my attention to Kakashi, giving him the most pleading look I could muster. He let out a long sigh and released his hold on me, lifting up one arm. With a delightful squeal, I hugged him again, savoring how he patted my back gently. Deciding not to push him for his wondrous gift, I then turned around and latched onto Naruto to satisfy my intense desire to hug people. Naruto squeezed me tightly, being the all-around ball of sunshine and love he was. The two of us are going to fill this world with so much love no one will ever be angsty again. As long as a member of the Uchiha are still alive, that's not going to happen. Shoo. Yes, it will. Everyone knows the greatest power of all is love and friendship. No. That would be a neutron star about to go out in style. Deidara would probably give his life for a chance to see that. Kakashi continued to smile at us. Well, I'll be watching, minions. Try not to embarrass me. Sasuke and Naruto pointedly looked towards me, and I whistled innocently. Try not to sexually harass the other genin, Kakashi told me. I don't know, man, I confessed. The goggle gods told me to go on a hugging spree before the second task. Of course they did, Sasuke sardonically said. Why wouldn't they do anything but enable your delusional fantasies? My fantasies will not remain delusional for much longer, I vowed. My harem will come to life, and as soon as I hit what passes for adulthood in this world, I will indulge in every fantasy my body can handle with said harem. You are a depraved person, Sasuke informed me. I didn't say they would be sexual fantasies, I pointed out. For all you know, I was referring to a 72-hour Uno marathon, or who can keep backflipping the longest before getting sick. You're the one that jumped to things of that nature. He flushed. You said adulthood. My legs would have finished growing by the time I reach adulthood, therefore I have a greater chance of winning the backflipping contest, I explained. Geez, get your mind out of the gutter. Yeah, Sasuke, don't be such a perverted bastard, Naruto agreed with me, grinning wickedly. Before the Uchiha could begin throttling either of us, Kakashi cleared his throat. Glad to see your team dynamics are strong as ever. Don't maim each other before the third part, bye. And he was gone. I missed him already. Naruto clapped his right fist into his left open palm. All right. Let's kick some ass and take some names. May the goggle gods watch over this, I solemnly prayed. It seemed like Sasuke was repressing the urge to sigh at us because his face screwed up and his shoulders twitched before decided to open the door for us. The three of us stepped inside the exam room and immediately I was wrapped into a tight hug. I let out a happy giggle as I hugged Hinata back, pulling back long enough to nuzzle my nose against hers. She giggled as I did so, a light blush covering her face. "Sakura-chan, I have missed you." "And I have missed you, my princess," I informed her, looking her up and down. Her jacket was nowhere to be found. Instead, the heiress wore a lilac t-shirt with a little pale blue flower over her left breast. Her arms were bare, displaying her well-earned muscles. I noticed that she wore matching wristbands as me, except while mine were pink, hers were a pale blue with a lilac sakura flower in the center, with matching shinobi gloves. She kept her standard pants and shoes. However, I noticed that she also chose to grow her hair out a bit more. "You look positively adorable," I told her, eliciting another blush from the girl. "She's not the only one looking adorable today," Ino interjected, wrapping an arm around my waist. Hinata and I both welcomed the blonde spitfire into our hug, causing Ino to blush and smile happily, which made Hinata and I giggle. "We are all adorable today," I declared, relishing the group hug and the feeling of warmth in our little circle. Naruto gave a whine. "Hey now. As the designated cuddle buddy of the harem, why am I not included?" Ino and I rolled our eyes but lifted our arms to allow Naruto to join. Hinata let out a quiet gasp when the hero tackled into us, laughing happily to be a part of the group hug. Poor Hinata was struggling not to faint. Her face was redder than Madara's armor and she was borderline hyperventilating. Thankfully for her, Kiba's next crude comment triggered Ino and Naruto and to round on him and focus their embarrassment annoyance on him. Hinata seized the moment and promptly hid behind me, burying her face in her hands. I patted her back consolingly, watching as Kiba and Naruto escalated their pissing contest. Our little group continued to watch our most boisterous members bicker until I noticed a certain someone heading our way. Kabuto approached, a smile on his face, and before he opened his mouth I threw my shoe at him. "Get out of here, you piece of shit. Don't even open your mouth. Leave before the next thing I do is take a spoon, gouge out your eyes and spoon feed them to you. Then choke you with said spoon." My previous classmates gaped at me while I glared hatefully at the lying liar who lies. Kabuto looked positively shell-shocked. "You Sakura-chan?" Hinata inquired hesitantly, entirely bewildered. I did not give her my attention, yet entirely focused on channeling every bit of my desire to kill the boss that was in front of me. Kabuto took a step back, playing the perfect role of being intimidated. I guess I'll leave." Only once the threat was gone I relaxed and beamed at all my friends. "Don't worry about it, guys. But that guy is the worst kind of scum you will ever meet. I will definitely do some not nice things to him one day." Sasuke's eyes lit up with understanding. "Wait. Is that?" Naruto looked between us for a moment before he too realized what Sasuke was asking. "Sakura-chan. Was that?" "Yes," I confirmed. "His name is Kabuto and what he has done is unforgivable." "That guy?" Kiba asked, incredulous. "What did he do?" Ino's brow furrowed. "I can't say yet," I answered. "But you guys will know within the month. And you all may very well come to hate him in the coming years." Shikamaru spoke up for the first time since we entered the room. "If he's that bad, why is he still a Konoha genin?" "I can't tell you that. The Goggle Gods warned me about telling anyone about the things he has done without solid proof. It's very dangerous." The Shikamaru began, but Naruto gave him a look and the Nara air fell quiet. Then there was a big puff of smoke and Ibiki appeared in all his bad-assery. All too happily I pushed out the yucky thoughts of Kabuto, focused entirely on enacting the next part of my epic plan. Scene change. As soon as I got my test, I flipped it over and began to draw a detailed image of Kakashi and me getting married with the Akatsuki, replacing the clouds with flowers, and they each wore masks. All around us, Hayden was the officiant, and Hinata acting as my maid of honor. I drew Tobi as Kakashi's best man with Naruto and Sasuke as groomsmen along with Guy. The pack of cuties were also dressed as groomsmen with cute little bows, and Pakan acting as the ring bearer. All the Konoha ladies with Tamari and Conan were dolled up acting as my bridesmaids. It was an outdoor wedding with lots of trees, clouds, and typical wedding stuff. I finished the picture and shaded it halfway through the test, and then I flipped it over and began to draw each Akatsuki duo in each box. Starting at the top left was Conan and Nagato enjoying some tea with the ghost of Yahiko blowing kisses to Conan. Top right was Itachi and Kisame, Itachi knitting while Kisame ate some sushi. Below them was the zombie duo Kakuzu holding Hayden's head and smirking while Hayden was throwing out curses. Beside them was Deidara and Sasori, competing over if art was everlasting or brief. Below them was Tobi being a cutie with Mia. To the box next to Tobi was Obito, and now proudly holding up goggles to the goggle gods. Then below them was Miwako, Naruto and Kurama posing for a photo. Finally beside Miwako, Naruto and Kurama was Madara eating cakes with Hashirama. In the box that was meant for the 10th question I wrote, the goggle gods blessed me with the knowledge that your test is bullshit. Praise be to the goggle gods, you heathen. I decided to finally pay attention to my teammates, noticing the Sasuke had completed his test and Naruto was giving Hinata a look of sheer awe. That made me a bit curious. Upon further inspection, it seemed that Hinata had literally swapped their test sheets after finishing her own. She was nearly done with Naruto's. The sheer size of the balls she had grown over the past month left me breathless. Love and encouragement did wonders. I never understood why people don't live by that. If everyone cared, so many problems would be fixed. If everyone loved, nothing else would get done. We'd all become lazy, having no reason to aspire for more. That is so not true. Get your cynicism out of my optimism. Get your optimism a check-up with reality. It really needs it. I promptly began to ignore my Debbie Downer inner. Scene change. The first part ended without any big scene or fuss. Anko arrived as sexy in person as she was in the anime and instructed us to follow her. I was in the lead, following her, admiring her shapely form. The other genin seemed content in giving her birth. Your butt is the second best but I have ever had the pleasure of seeing. That made the poison mistress stop, irritated. Second best? Kakashi-sensei has the best, but I explained to her. She paused in her walking, then shook her head. Even if it's him, my ass should be way better. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I said to her, ignoring how Naruto was tugging on my sleeve and gesturing wildly for me to be quiet. Almost the entire group of genin that was following behind Anko was listening to our conversation. Your butt is very attractive and you have this whole sexy vibe going for you. Easily the sexiest kunoichi I have personally seen, but Kakashi-sensei's but is like. Words failed me and I gestured with my hands. Anko peered at me. I get where you're coming from, but I personally don't see it. I gasped. How could you not? Have you seen his butt? Yes, Anko answered. Every kunoichi has, and a good chunk of shinobi, I bet. There were some scandalized gasps and chokes from the participating genin. Anko lightly patted her bum. But he has nothing on his. I'm as smooth as a baby's ass. I have it on good authority that he is too, I exclaimed. That got another pause and a leer from Anko. Really? Really, I confidently told her. How do you know? Who told you? I hesitated, thinking that perhaps Kakashi wouldn't want me to inform Anko that I had managed to grab his booty on more than one occasion. I'm not allowed to say. Anko bent over and squinted at me. She stared at me for several seconds before her eyes lit up and she chortled. Ha! Looks like we have ourselves another Jiraiya-sama. I gasped. You know? I can't believe you got the drop on Hataki, Enko commented, placing a hand on my shoulder and making me walk with her as she guided the rest of the genin once more. So is it really that good? It's why I say it's the best. You're biased. You obviously have the hots for your teacher. Not able to deny that with a straight face, I merely smiled in response. That seemed to amuse the sexy lady even more so because she snickered, patting me on the back. Tell you what. You pass this part and I'll let you buy me dango. I bowed before her. It would be my honor, oh sweet spirit of sheer sexiness. If I didn't know any better, I could have sworn I heard groans of disgust from behind me. Clearly must have been my imagination. Scene change, the rest of the trip to the forest went by pretty quick with Enko and I shamelessly flirting back and forth. When we had arrived, she gave her dramatic speech about the rules and blah blah blah. Then the waivers were handed out. It was time for the next step in my epic plan, hug time. I shouted out after signing my waiver. I handed it over to Naruto before throwing my arms around him. Since we have another 30 minutes, I'm going to hug everyone. Naruto patted my back. Everyone? I pulled away from him, already running towards a complete stranger from Kumogakure who had a nice butt. Everyone. Scene change, I returned to my team a few minutes before we had to enter the forest. Each group was assigned a different area and an assistant lead us to different gates. When it was time for the second part to begin, the door to the Forest of Death unlocked and the assistant stepped back with a cocky smirk. We stepped inside the Forest of Death. Sasuke looked over at us. We need a plan. I pulled off my backpack and dropped it on the ground. I got this, guys. They both turned to look at my backpack, and when I unzipped it, I presented it to be filled with Earth and Heaven scrolls. They stared at it. What? Sasuke deadpanned. Kakashi-sensei said the exams didn't end between part 1 and part 2. I began to explain, so technically as soon as we knew the parameters of part 2 we could act. Enko-sama did not specify that we had to take the scrolls while inside the forest. She only stated that we had to present 1 Heaven and 1 Earth scroll at the tower by the end of 5 days. Naruto was bewildered. So how did you get all those scrolls, Sakura-chan? Remember how I went on my hugging spree earlier? I asked. Well, while I was hugging people, I pricked them with my hallucinogenic poison, the one that makes them super drunk, and then I nicked their scrolls while they were feeling hazy. Sasuke's brow furrowed. When the poison wore off, though, wouldn't they realize they had a missing scroll? I left a duplicate in its place. How did you know to make duplicates? The goggle gods, I answered, zipping my backpack up and slinging it back over my shoulders. Anyway, that's the abridged version. We have our scrolls, so let's head to the tower, yeah? Naruto grinned brightly at me. That's so amazing, Sakura-chan. You're always so prepared. Yes, I drawled out slowly. Obviously, there was a bit more to the story. I didn't go anywhere near teams I knew were dangerous or I felt had chakra levels higher than regular genin. Several of the teams participating were overly arrogant and lowered their guards around me, which was another criteria for me to target them, misbelieving I was only a little girl. Joke's on them, though. I'm a crazy woman, I keep everyone on their toes. That you do. Sasuke shifted, still giving me a disbelieving look. Okay. Let's head to the center tower then. I saluted. Brilliant plan, good sir. Last one, there has to be everyone else's sex slave. Naruto let out a scandalized gasp while Sasuke grimaced. No. Party pooper, I pouted, already taking off into the trees. It would be pretty swell if our team managed to beat the others to the tower. We could break a whole new record, you know? I bet Kakashi would feel super proud of us and praise me bunches if we did that. That thought made my heart skip a happy beat. My feet landed with soft thuds as I leapt from branch to branch, Naruto and Sasuke flanking me. Sasuke's eyes had shifted into a Sharingan and he seemed to be constantly scanning our surroundings. Naruto had an inordinately happy smile on his face, looking like the most pleased pickle in existence. I felt the urge to ruffle his hair every time I looked over and saw that smile. We moved quickly, not pausing when we heard the first screams echo throughout the forest. Naruto and Sasuke, never ones to turn down a competition, did their best to race to the tower. Even without the penalty to the loser, all of us were motivated to be the first team to reach the tower. If everything had gone according to plan, we would never even have to see Orochimaru. Unfortunately, things did not go according to plan. But hey, that's what backup plans were for. So when that big gust came out of nowhere and blew us all away, in the same direction though, because we were tightly packed together in our race, I wasn't too surprised. And when Orochimaru walked towards us, disguise firmly in place with a smile on his face, I knew it was time for the backup epic plan. The killing intent flooded the area, freezing my teammates for a brief moment and stunning me for a split second before excitement and adrenaline overrode me. The widest smile possible stretched across my cheeks in anticipation for one of the best damn villains in written history, in my totally biased opinion, approached us. The goggle gods warned me of your impending arrival, I told Orochimaru as I pulled out a small scroll from my backpack. The creepy, in a cool way, Snake Man chortled. Did they now? Do you know who I am then? I nodded my head. Of course, Orochimaru-sama. I have your complete collection of anatomy guides in my room. I would have brought them to get your autograph, but I was worried they would get damaged in the forest. Orochimaru laughed once more, his killing intent idly dying off. Sasuke and Naruto slowly moved to flank either side of me, both eyeing Orochimaru cautiously. I wouldn't have thought one of Konoha's little seedlings would be allowed to want my autograph. They just don't understand you, I reassured him. I can't say I entirely do too, but I can definitely say that I understand enough not to hate you and that I can appreciate what you have done. Without yours and Tsunade-sama's experiments, Konoha wouldn't be so advanced in medical care as it is now. But of course Orochimaru agreed with me. What on earth is a rational child like yourself still doing in this village? Rational? Sasuke repeated, incredulous. I'm in love with Kakashi-sensei, I explained. I couldn't bear to just leave him. Otherwise, I would have gone rogue and hunted down Kisame-sama and begged his blessing to hang out with him. Hashigaki-san is an interesting fellow, Orochimaru commented pleasantly, as if remarking on the weather. I certainly think so, I sighed happily, thinking about my idol. Returning to the point on hand, I unsealed the scroll. I don't want to die, and I don't think my teammates want to die either. Orochimaru said most don't. Then 15 flares shot up and out of the scroll and into the sky, illuminating our entire vision in bright red and purple. Flares were used to signal for immediate help, and all genin teams were required to carry red flares on every mission. Purple flares were one of 5 distinctive flares to alert everyone in the vicinity to the level of danger. Green for B rank, yellow for A rank, pink for S, purple for SS or Kage level, and white was used for when a team was significantly outnumbered. I wasn't sure if Anko and the Umbu were already searching for Orochimaru, but Orochimaru didn't know if they were looking for him yet either. So now the incredibly dangerous missing Nin was left with a bit of a dilemma. He clearly didn't want to confront an entire squad of Umbu, which he did not know if they were coming or not, but being the cautious genius he was, he would assume they were, but he very much wanted to give Sasuke a curse mark. Orochimaru frowned. That's no fun. I don't want to die yet, I told him. I am sorry. If I knew for sure you wouldn't kill us, I wouldn't have shot up the flares. I suppose I can't fault you for that, Orochimaru allowed, causing me to beam at him, but really. You cut my time significantly. Next time we meet up, I'll buy you lunch as an apology, I offered. Orochimaru tilted his head at that, and then he was a blur in the next moment. I didn't feel any killing intent coming from him, so it greatly surprised me when the next instant I saw him. He was digging his knee up into my diaphragm and sending me hurtling through the trees before I landed with a very dizzying thud. pain shot throughout my entire backside, and I knew that he had successfully broken several bones with one kick. Blood pooled into my mouth as I struggled to stay awake. Each breath burned and I could not take in enough oxygen to breathe properly. He had induced traumatic pneumothorax when the ribs broke inwards and punctured my left lung. As the edges of my vision blackened, I knew I had to work quickly before I suffocated or passed out. Thankfully, adrenaline worked wonders on dulling the pain and giving me a semi-clear mind to focus on what to do in order to survive. I heard shouts and I felt more than I saw the battle commence around me. Praise to the goggle gods that my backpack was still on me, so I was able to take out my emergency medical supplies. With extremely shaky hands, I pulled out the emergency syringe and jabbed it into my chest, reinflating my lung. It caused enough immediate relief that I took a staggering breath and worked to remove my ribs from my lung and heal the tissue. I wouldn't be able to repair the broken bones properly in the current environment, but I could deal with that pain. The holes were small enough so that they would have been able to heal on their own given enough time, and my body all too happily regrew under my shosen. I calcified my ribs so they would not break off, but I'll have to re-break my ribs to set them properly, I thought with a grimace. Once the immediate threat to my life was taken care of, I took stock of the rest of my injuries. My right shoulder was dislocated, holy hell that hurts, and either my hip was out of place or fractured, and my back felt like it was going to be a big angry bruise for a month. None of which were life-threatening, so I ignored them in favor of finding my teammates. I could not have been distracted for more than a minute, and already Naruto and Sasuke were unconscious and Orochimaru was gone. I tried to stand back up, but my hip protested so much that I had to pop it back into place myself before doing anything else. I bit hard on my bottom lip to keep from crying out as I heard the pop from twisting my hip back into place. I took a few moments to recollect myself before forcing myself to stand up and hobble over to Naruto. I sent a jolt of chakra into his system in hopes of awaking him, and I was pleasantly surprised when he gave a low groan. The hero opened his eyes and blearily looked up at me. Sakura-chan? Hello. Do me a favor? He sat up grimacing. Yeah, what's up? Pop my shoulder back into place? Naruto nodded his head, then hesitated. I don't know how to do that. It's okay, I'll guide you, I reassured him. I leaned back on my butt before sinking down onto the ground to lay flat on my back. Grab my right elbow with your right hand and my right wrist with your left hand. Naruto tentatively did so, his clear blue eyes bright with obvious worry. Good. Now slow and steady, pull my arm away from my body. As he did so, I had to turn my head away and bit down hard on my lip and tongue. It took a couple of tries, but he was eventually able to pop it back into place. With that being settled, I did a quick diagnostic of Naruto. Damn grateful Kurama of the Fluff was already healing him, before I headed over to Sasuke. Disappointment flared through me before I pushed it aside. Sasuke had the curse mark. Despite heading straight towards the tower and only being a few hours away, Max Orochimaru still found us. He still headed straight towards us. Short of spilling everything to the Hokage and taking a trip to TNI, was there anything else I could have done to prevent that? I don't think so. Even then, that's not a guarantee. Orochimaru won't find some other to get to Sasuke. We did the best we could under the circumstances and with the criteria of, not wanting to die yet. It was still frustrating. But frustration got me nowhere, and it wasn't a pleasant feeling, so away that went. Naruto squatted down on the opposite side of me, his brow furrowed as he looked at Sasuke. What do we do? It's unsafe to treat him out here, I said slowly. We're only a few hours away from the tower, so let's rush there. He should be okay until we get there. Then what? I'll take care of it, don't worry about it. Naruto smiled brightly. Okay. I trust you. Sakura-chan. Unease settled in my stomach at his words for some reason. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's right arm and slung it over his shoulder. I did the same with Sasuke's left arm, and the two of us ran as fast as we could to the tower. Scene change. As soon as we entered the tower, I ripped off my backpack and pulled out a heaven scroll and an earth scroll. Quickly, I unrolled both and placed them over one another. Within seconds there was a puff of smoke, and it was not Irika who appeared in the smoke, but rather a young woman whose name I did not know. She wore her chunin attire well, with rainbow-dyed hair swept up into a bun in the back. She looked over each of us. Team 7? I nodded for us, hearing Naruto grunt as he shifted his hold over our unconscious teammate. She smirked at us. Congrats on being the first to the tower. Your buddy gonna make it? We ran into Orochimaru in the forest, I said, watching closely as her face paled and her eyes widened. He left a gift for our teammate, and we're going to require a sealing team for him. She shifted uneasily at my words. It would be a violation of the rules if teams were granted outside medical assistance until the second part is complete. Tell our sensei then, so he can prepare the sealing immediately afterwards. Right, the Chunin agreed. Well, you all have free reign of the tower until the 5 days are up. Kitchen is on the second floor and dorms are floors 3 through 7. Once more I nodded my head at that. The Chunin disappeared in a puff of smoke, and I helped Naruto carry Sasuke upstairs. We dumped our feverish teammate onto a bed, and then it was time to work. See this mark here? I asked Naruto, pointing towards the curse mark. Naruto pulled up a chair to sit beside me while I worked on Sasuke. He nodded his head. It's some kind of seal. According to my diagnosis and what I can tell from Shosen, it's forcing itself into Sasuke's chakra network. Naruto paled. That's bad, right? Yes, I agreed quietly. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it right now. Neither of us are Fuinjutsu experts, and my medical expertise can only go so far. What we can do is help flush out the toxic chakra it's emitting into his system and keep his fever down. Is there something I can do? Naruto asked me. Yes. Keep giving him chakra pills and anti-inflammatory medication. We'll change his cooling pack every hour too. If it gets too bad, we'll have to give him an ice bath. He's going to be okay though, right? I hesitated. He's going to have a tough time, but I believe he'll be okay in the end. Naruto? The curse mark is affecting his nervous system as well. Well, you know how you sometimes go berserk when you use Kurama's chakra? The ball of sunshine cocked his head at me. What? The Kyuubi, you know? What kind of self-appointed mother would I be if I didn't know? I retorted. But you understand what I'm talking about, yeah? At his nod, I continued, well, Sasuke's going to go through something similar. If too much of that thing's chakra is released into his system at once, it'll cause him to go a bit crazy. It'll be up to us to stop him and calm him down. It's not entirely his fault though, so don't take anything he says or does personal when he's like that. Naruto punched his left palm, a grin on his face. I can do that. If that's all there is to worry about, then everything really is going to be okay. I couldn't resist smiling at that. Yes. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to break some bones and do a bit of damage control for myself. If you hear me scream, please pretend you heard nothing. He grimaced. Yeah. Okay. Scene change. Unfortunately, some of my injuries required an extra set of hands. I had to have Naruto wrap the bandages around my chest and back. He was extremely uncomfortable with it, but understood the necessity and acted like a complete gentleman, because I couldn't friggin' move after breaking a couple of ribs. I had a whole bunch of scratches and gashes and all sorts of fun shit covering my back, so I had to dress it somehow until I could finagle a way to heal my back. A shoulder, after being dislocated recently, did not want to move much. Sasuke floated in and out of consciousness. The first time he woke up semi-coherent Naruto, and I reassured him that he was in a safe place and didn't have to fight. That seemed to trigger his body to shut down and focus entirely on recuperating from Orochimaru's brief encounter. He didn't become coherent until it was time for the preliminary exams. Gaara's team had arrived a couple hours after our team. Apparently I had taken out enough of the competition that it took a couple of tries to find a team that didn't have a duplicate. Oopsie. Hinata's team came later that night. I greeted them with hugs. Hinata figured out the duplicates were because of me. I had left tiny little flowers in the corner of the duplicates, and she watched me work my magic before entering the forest, and explained it to her teammates. Kiba was quite put off with me because it took them multiple tries to find a team that didn't have a duplicate, while Shino praised me on my cunning. Hinata just smiled at me and pinched my cheek, citing, "If I didn't like you so much I might have been annoyed." I giggled at that and responded with lies. "You're too full of goodness and love to be annoyed with anyone." She shook her head in response. Team 8 hung around our room, Hinata happily assisting to help care for Sasuke. Kiba and Naruto enjoyed bantering with one another, and the boisterous genin listened to each other's stories of what their teams had been up to for the past couple of months since academy days. I had Hinata redress my wounds over the next couple of days until I could move my shoulder enough to use Shosen on my back. Some of the injuries would leave behind barely visible scars. It would make for a hell of a cool story. "Oh, how did you get that scar?" someone would ask. "I got in a fight with Orochimaru. And lived." Holy Arceus, that is badass. I know. Quite the story indeed. Team 9 showed up after the third day into the exam, well into the night, followed shortly by Otogekire's team. On the fourth day, looking extremely worse for where Team 10 arrived. On the same day, I also kidnapped Hinata to help me booby-trap a certain room I found. With the reunion of all the rookies, all of US stayed close. Guy's team seemed to be held off in semi-isolation, likely demanded by Niji and to a lesser extent Tenten. I healed up what injuries I could and Hinata stitched the injuries I could not. The rest of our time passed by in a very relaxed state. The fifth day, all of us stayed in our rooms and rested in preparation for the next step of the exam. Then came 2 in the afternoon and each team received a message to meet in the very same room I had, by complete coincidence I'm sure, booby-trapped. Things were about to get exciting again. Scene change, checking in with Kakashi. Third-person POV. Kakashi joined the rest of the Konoha instructors in the surveillance room to monitor the first part of the exams. His longtime friend and self-appointed rival Guy greeted him with a cheerful wave and a blinding smile. "My friend. I was not aware your team would be a part of the exams. It was made apparent to me early on that they would want to participate," Kakashi answered, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Hokage-sama was also interested in one of my minions becoming a chunin." Asuma snorted. "Let me guess, Naruto." "No," Kakashi responded quietly, thinking back to the evil glint in Hiruzen's eyes at the thought of a certain Pinkette having unlimited access to the Aika Aika series. The evil man had chortled, merrily smiling as he said with an all-too-straight face, "She would be good for you, Kakashi-kun. She seems very fun. She's 12. For now," Hiruzen agreed, still smiling evilly. There was no way he actually thought that Kakashi would even consider being with someone so young, but the man openly enjoyed the fact that the aspiring medic could make her sensei squirm. Hiruzen was a firm believer in shinobi expressing their emotions, when not on missions of course, and not turning into mindless tools, and the fact that she brought out honest reactions and feelings from the emotionally repressed retired Umbu made Hiruzen hopeful for his subordinate. Kurenai frowned at Kakashi's response. "He favors the Uchiha then?" Kakashi mutely shook his head. Guy chuckled. "I am not surprised. Kakashi's fair maiden is most surprising. She brims with youthful enthusiasm." "She is not my fair maiden," Kakashi corrected. "She is my minion. An evil perverted minion." "Hinata-chan thinks highly of Sakura-chan," Kurenai said slowly. Surely you must be exaggerating. Kakashi gave her a look as if patronizing a child. Kurenai flushed, looking away in a huff. You were never good with Kunoichi. You probably don't know how to handle her, the poor girl. I'm the victim here, Kakashi protested. She's worse than Jiraiya. No way, Asuma immediately denied. No one is worse than him. She is, Kakashi insisted. Asuma turned towards the surveillance screen, squinting at the group of genin. That girl right there? The one that's hugging her friends. She's a pervert? Kakashi nodded firmly. The only reason she wants to be a chunin is to purchase Aika. I don't believe that, Kurenai declared. Kakashi gave her another look, causing the Kunoichi to glare balefully at him. The instructors watched the footage for another moment before another genin approached the group. Sakura immediately took off her right shoe and threw it at him, her face contorting into a look Kakashi had honestly never seen on his minion before. The look of sheer hatred on her face was unsettling. He had only ever seen smiles and the occasional wince from his casual rejections. The other genin seemed equally surprised by the venomous looks and likely words she threw towards the silver-haired genin. Only until the genin had left did she flip a switch and turned back into cheerful young girl. Who was that? Kurenai asked, looking over at Kakashi. Kakashi didn't have an answer. But he would soon enough. Yo, Kakashi greeted casually. His team had entered the Forest of Death yesterday, so he would not be seeing them for another few days. He planned on spending that time relaxing with light training thrown in, but Ibiki had requested to meet with him. The scarred interrogator took a seat beside Kakashi at the bar. They sat at a single paper in hand. He slammed said paper on the counter, a scowl on his face. Who the hell are the goggle gods? Kakashi blinked at that, then looked down. He recognized Sakura's drawings, although he did not recognize who she drew except Obito. How did she know Obito? Surely no one would tell her about that tidbit of information about him. People knew better than to talk about Kakashi's past and her curly handwriting. He read the message at the bottom of the paper and resisted the urge to snort and bury his face in his hands. He settled for shaking his head. I don't know. How did she know about my exam? I literally came up with it that morning, Ibiki demanded. The goggle gods is the term Sakura uses to explain away anything she figures out, Kakashi explained. She has a very high natural intuition. She likely saw through your exam, then explained it away through her gods. Ibiki's eyes narrowed. Really? That is the most likely scenario, Kakashi allowed. I don't have any obvious proof, but I can confirm she doesn't have any hidden Kekai Genkai, nor do these goggle gods actually exist. Ibiki snorted. He supposed that it did make sense. No one could keep things hidden from the Hitaki Kakashi, so if there was something odd about Sakura, the famed Jonin would have figured it out by now. That being said, Ibiki still had a gut feeling that there was something a bit more to the story. Without definitive proof though, Ibiki wouldn't push the retired Umbu. Well, not about that anyway. With a smirk, Ibiki flipped over the paper. Care to share, Hitaki? Kakashi stared at Sakura's picture of their wedding for a solid minute before he took a long swig of his sake and buried his face in his arms. You have 10 seconds to leave and take that atrocity with you before I break that damn jaw of yours. Ibiki smirked, obliging the embarrassed man. Chapter 9. It'll cost you. We made our way to the arena as a team, bumping into our former classmates along the way and exchanging pleasant greetings. When we arrived in the arena, my eyes zoomed around to find Kakashi. I was disappointed that I couldn't find him though. Then a flash of red caught my attention just as Hiruzen began his speech. My eyes zoomed in on a team I did not expect to see. When they hadn't shown up the first couple of days, I feared they had lost both scrolls I had managed to sneak onto their person while I hugged them. Lo and behold, though looking extremely battered, was one Kusagakure Genin team with a shy Karen who fidgeted nervously. She must have sensed my gaze on her because she turned around and met my stare. Her eyes lit up with recognition and a smile bloomed across her face. I instantly smiled back at her as warmly as I could, hoping she would understand that I wanted to be her friend. When the Hokage's speech was done and Heiei motioned for each of us to head up on the balcony before he would announce the first matchup, I reached across the room and grabbed Karen's hand. Both her teammates turned to glare suspiciously at me before they recognized me. One of her male teammates, whose name was entirely unimportant, said, "Hey, you're the one that placed those scrolls on us." I smiled at Karen, ignoring the male that would never make the cut to be a part of my harem. "You should come and join our team, cutie." She blushed. Don't listen to her, Karen," the other teammate said. "We should stay together. Teams are over by this point. No need for teams to stay together unless they want to," I told the boys. "So Karen-chan can come hang out with me and my friends. Unless you'd rather stay with these two boys?" She hesitated, fidgeting under her teammates' glares before she shook her head. I shot them both triumphant smirks before I tugged on her hand. Hinata and Naruto were waiting for me at the base of the stairs, both smiling warmly at Karen and myself. "I'm Hyuga Hinata." Hinata introduced herself to the rosy-haired girl. "You Uzumaki Karen," Karen replied. Naruto's eyes widened. "What? Did you say Uzumaki?" Even Hinata was surprised. "Are you Naruto-kun's cousin?" Karen tilted her head at that, her brow furrowed. Who? "Talk while we walk, dearies. They want to start the matches," I said, guiding everyone up the stairs. Sasuke looked over at us, his hands stuffed in his pocket as he waited for us to join him. Kiba and Shino gravitated towards our group and soon Ino's team followed. Once everyone had arrived, I introduced Karen once more. "Everyone, this is Uzumaki Karen from Kusagakure." "The idiot has a cousin?" Sasuke asked. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto said quickly to the growing more confused Karen. Are we cousins?" "We might be," Karen said slowly. "Do you not know about our clan?" "I have a clan?" Naruto exclaimed, excitement lighting up his eyes. The Uzumaki clan was one of the most powerful clans during the Warring Clans period, I explained to the hero. They were one of the founding clans that helped create this village. Their Haim Mito-sama married Hashirama, the very first Hokage Konoha ever had. Unfortunately, during the end of the Second Great War, they were destroyed. Karen nodded at my explanation. "We had to scatter all over the lands. My family went to Kusagakure. I'm the last member though." Naruto's face had fallen from our explanation. "Oh." Then it brightened. "So we are cousins?" "Very likely," Karen tentatively agreed. "So you really don't know anything about our clan?" Naruto shook his head. "The Uzumaki clan was renowned for their Fuinjutsu," Shikamaru slowly said. "As such, most of their work is classified for chunin and above unless given special permission by a jonin." Before we could continue our conversation, Hiruzen cleared his throat. "The bye will be given to Uzumaki Karen." Our eyes drifted up to the screen where Karen's name flashed. "Oh, thank God," Karen breathed out, her shoulders sagging with utter relief. "I am too exhausted to fight." "Why is that?" "I know I put one heaven and earth scroll in your bag before the exam started." "We didn't realize it until the fourth day," Karen admitted sheepishly. "We lost our original scroll and when I realized I had two in my bag, we rushed as fast as we could to the tower, but by then we were already so exhausted from trying to get back our first scroll. We only barely made it in time." "Why did you give them two scrolls and not us?" Ino asked me, glowering. "Because I had faith in your abilities," I honestly answered her. I did not have faith in Karen's teammates. Plus, she looked like she could use a little help and I could never turn down a cutie in distress. Ino's face screwed up before she smirked and tossed her hair back. "I am pretty amazing and you were absolutely right to have faith in me. Despite your decoys, we still passed. With style and beauty undoubtedly, I added, giving her a flirtatious wink. Ino giggled and lightly hit on top of my right shoulder. Stop it, you, Ino said, giving me a mock smoldering look and batting her eyelashes. Hinata stared at the exchange before a snort escaped her lips, and then the three of us burst out into laughter, with some of our teammates alternating between chuckling and looking embarrassed by us. Then there were some puffs of smoke and our senseis had arrived to join us on the balcony. I screamed with happiness before launching myself at Kakashi. Oh my goggle gods, I missed you so much. I figured, Kakashi said, patting my back. A little birdie told me what happened during the forest. Sasuke, when you're finished with your match you'll have to come with me. Sasuke shrugged and I tried not to happy cry because I was so dang happy to see Kakashi and to hug him again. He pried me off him soon enough though, because Heiei cleared his throat to gather all of our attention. The first round will be Sabaku Tamari and Nara Shikamaru, Heiei declared. Good luck, you sexy Windheim, I called out, making Tamari smirk at me from across the room. Kick his ass. Shikamaru glared sullenly at the floor of the arena. I would be first. If you lose I will wake you up every day at 4 a.m. to go shopping with me, Ino threatened. Shikamaru paled at his determined teammate. I'll help her, I put in. Me too, Hinata giggled. Shikamaru glared at each of us before sighing and starting to make his way down to the arena. Tamari taunted him and Shikamaru ignored her, shooting us tired glares instead. When the match began, Tamari half-heartedly threw wind-style attacks and Shikamaru dodged them every time. Shikamaru couldn't do anything aside from dodging at the moment since Tamari kept throwing basic ninjutsu at him. I doubt she took the match all too seriously, to be honest, and why would she? She would be promoted to Chunin regardless of what happened. Then Shikamaru actually attacked. And by that I mean he threw kunai at some of the overhead lights, immediately making the arena darker. She laughed at his poor aim and then she froze, and we all knew Shikamaru had the match then. He knocked her out the same way he knocked out Kin in Canon, and Heiei called the match in his favor. Tamari woke up shortly after and gave him the most hateful glare she could before marching right back up to her brothers. Good job, you have earned the right to sleep in, I told Shikamaru when he returned. Thank the goggle gods for this mercy, I told him. Okay. Thank the goggle gods, Shikamaru easily agreed. Heiei coughed loudly. Next match will be Sakura Haruno against Dosu from Otogekure. I looked up at Kakashi, my eyes bright. Kakashi-sensei, if I win my match can I have another hug? Are you going to throw the match if I say no? No, I admitted, quietly cursing myself for my inability to lie about hugs to Kakashi. Then no. I pouted. You can hug me, Hinata and Naruto offered immediately, which made me brighten up and kiss both their cheeks. They both blushed like the cutie patooties they were, and feeling energized I decided to leap down into the arena. I took a bow. Hello, person who will lose. Dosu sneered at me and Heiei called for the match to begin. Dosu immediately leapt towards me and I danced away from him. With a snarl he threw himself at me again and again. I leapt away. The third time he tried to catch me I leapt away and held out my hand in a gesture of pause. Dosu eyed me warily as I relaxed my battle stance, smiling widely. Hey, you know this place used to double as a training ground for Umbu. Your point? Dosu drawled out. I thought it would be fun to leave little gifts for the Umbu, I explained. Bye-bye. I remotely triggered 2 of the explosive tags Hinata and I had buried into the arena. Those said tags happened to be underneath the spot I had corralled Dosu into. The explosion was immediate, bright, and beautiful. The genin had no time to react and endured the entire brunt of the explosion. He soared high up into the air, hit the ceiling, and crashed back down like a rag doll. The winner was obvious when he didn't move again. I took a bow as Heiei called the match in my favor before heading back up to my friends. Shouldn't that count as cheating? Karen asked hesitantly when I returned. I'm a kunoichi though, I said as if it explained everything. In my mind it did. Good job Sakura-chan, Naruto cheered happily. Very quick, Hinata praised. Lapping up their praise, I then turned my hopeful gaze towards Kakashi. Well done, Kakashi praised. I squealed. Praise whore. To be frank, most of the matches went on like that, quick and entirely not dramatic and a little boring. I mean, not to be mean or anything, but most of us didn't really have some kick-ass arsenal up our sleeves. We were genin. Besides, only one match would have any level of killing intent involved, so there really was no reason to pay super close attention to all of them. Instead, I preferred to talk with my friends and try to include Karen in as many conversations as humanly possible. Ino quickly got the hint that I wanted to include Karen, so she began to actively ask her questions and whatnot, which got Naruto all excited about having a cousin again, so he asked her loads of stuff about the Uzumaki clan. The third match was Kiba against Choji, with the Inuzuka barely winning. Next was Gaara facing Zaku, with Gaara turning the fella into a blood smear on the floor. I of course cheered for Gaara and called Shikaku-sama a cutie patootie, which earned me a small nod from Gaara. The fifth match was actually the only dramatic match during the preliminaries. It was Hinata against Niji. When Hinata saw the matchup, her back straightened and she took a deep breath. I rubbed her back. I love and support you. Naruto, tell her you love and support her. I like you a lot and I support you, Naruto added, rubbing her back with me. Hinata started squeaking, her face red. I like you too and I support you, Ino chimed in, patting Hinata's head. You know I like and support you too, Kiba said, patting Hinata's shoulder. Shino patted Hinata's opposite shoulder. I like you as well. Why? Because you are a good person. And I support you. Why? Because you are my friend. Everyone. Hinata half squeaked, half wailed as tears filled her eyes and she buried her face in her hands. I don't know you very well, but you seem like a nice person, so you have my support too, Karen hesitantly put in, patting Hinata's arm. Hyuga-san? Hey 8 inquired politely. Hinata took another deep breath, her face still as red as Kushina's hair, and wobbly made her way down. Are you prepared to meet your destiny, Hinata Haim? Niji spat. Today you will lose as the weakling you are. Hinata began, then took a deep breath and smushed her cheeks together. I am not weak. Begin. He lunged at her with every ounce of hatred he had. Their punches and kicks were a blur as they rapidly engaged in a terse battle of taijutsu. Niji definitely landed more blows than Hinata, but Hinata had grazed him successfully more than once. Niji was slowly forcing Hinata back, and after another minute of fighting, Hinata had to leap away, her breaths ragged. Her right arm dangled listlessly at her side, and I noticed that Niji's own left arm was twitching. She must have grazed one of his tenketsus. Not enough to entirely limit his mobility, but enough to make it difficult to utilize. Atta girl. Then Hinata smiled at Niji and said, now I know why the goggle gods told Sakura-chan to have me practice that for so long. Niji's glare never wavered until Hinata's chakra flexed and her once useless arm jabbed out and she clenched her right hand into a fist. Niji's face transformed into shock before utter frustration took a hold in his eyes. How? This is a battle that we should have had a long time ago, Hinata said softly. I'm sorry that only now I am able to face you. It doesn't matter, Niji snapped. You will lose today because that is your destiny. Our destinies are greater than a simple exam, Hinata told him. Our destinies are whatever we can reach for. I know you can do better than worry about a silly test. You are so much better than that, Niji Nizan. Hinata paused and smushed her cheeks together. I am better than that. My heart melted then and there, I swear. Shut up, Niji snarled, throwing himself at Hinata with renewed strength. His blows were brutal and the sounds of chakra slapping against chakra echoed throughout the arena. He forced Hinata step back after step. No. Wait. He's not forcing her back. She's guiding him somewhere. She's guiding. Then Hinata jumped high up into the air and landed a little ways from Niji, relaxing her posture. Niji's face contorted when he realized her posture and he shifted his stance, preparing to leap at her again. Niji Nizan, Hinata said softly, a spark in her eyes. Fair warning, but I helped Sakura-chan plant the explosions. Niji's eyes widened comically as Hinata remotely detonated another explosion. Niji had a greater reaction time than Dosu though. He understood Hinata's warning as soon as she said helped Sakura-chan, and was already on the move. Unfortunately for him, the explosion was simply too great to entirely avoid. The force knocked him off his path and he soared through the air uncontrollably. Hinata took that chance and leapt at him as soon as he landed, disabling the rest of the Tenketsu in his arms. She kneeled beside him, smiling softly and warmly. You did wonderfully, Niji Nizan. I am proud to be your sea cousin, and I truly am sorry for all the horrors you had to endure throughout the years. You may not believe me yet, but I hope Indiana time you will. I swear, Niji Nizan, as I have won today, I will win against all those out-of-date traditions in the Hyuga family. I will change it for the best. Niji continued to glare at the shining kunoichi, stonily refusing to say a word. Hinata's smile took on a sadder turn and she reached out and patted his cheek. I will gladly take on your hatred now, Niji Nizan, if that's what it takes. I'm sorry I was not strong enough before. His glare faltered for a moment and the wounded child looked away from the bright princess. Hinata looked up at the proctor. He will have to be taken to the urgency care to treat his injuries. May I go with him? Hey-8 nodded. Yes. You have my permission. When the stretcher took Niji away, Hinata followed after him, the warmth never leaving her smile as she looked after him. Hail the therapy no jutsu via Hina-chan. Hinata's a badass, Naruto exclaimed. I nodded my head. Yep. That's my girl. The next match was Naruto against Shino, and I think we all know how utterly unfair that was for Shino. Naruto won. Then it was time for Sasuke's match. The Uchiha was still fairly groggy, but luckily for him he was against Ino, who was reluctant to really harm him. That being said, she did honestly try. She knew she wouldn't stand a chance in taijutsu, so she threw kunai after kunai at him with some bombs added in occasionally. She made him keep his distance for a while, but unfortunately for her that wasn't enough to defeat the determined boy with duck-ass hair. Sasuke won his match and then was ushered away by Kakashi and several other jonin. Ino pouted at losing but took it fairly well. Next match was Kankuro against Lee, and that one was actually rather funny after Lee demolished Kankuro's puppet with one kick, thinking it was Kankuro. The puppet master forfeited immediately afterwards, which left Lee a little disappointed. Lastly was Kin against Tenten, and that fight was much more evenly matched than the other ones had been, with Tenten scoring a solid victory with a few scrapes and bruises. Kakashi came back about halfway through that match and accepted my hug without much resistance while I continued to talk with those around me. Our latest talk had devolved into an argument over what was the greatest movie of all time, with the Yuki Haim movies being pitted against some weird dragon movie that had absolutely no romance in it whatsoever. Then again, neither did Yuki Haim movies, but at least she had a nice butt to admire during the entire movie. When the last preliminary was over, Hey-8 called for our attention back up on the screen. Round 1 Hinata Fuka vs Shikamaru Nara. Round 2 Sakura Haruno vs Tenten. Round 3 Naruto Uzumaki vs Kiba Inuzuka. Round 4 Karen Uzumaki vs Lee Rock. Round 5 Uchiha Sasuke vs Gaara. Round 6 winner of Round 1 vs winner of Round 2. Round 7 winner of Round 3 vs winner of Round 4. Round 8 A free for all of the winners of Round 5, 6 and 7. The final part of the exam will be held in 1 month tournament style. The screen shows who you will be facing for your first match. Further information will be provided by your senseis within a week. Dismissed. I leapt towards Kakashi, throwing my arms around him and burying my face in his side. I felt him sigh, then proceed to ignore me as he addressed Naruto. We'll meet up tomorrow around noon, same training ground. Grats on all of you making this far. Will you give me private lessons, Kakashi-sensei? I pleaded, batting my eyes at him. I promise I'll be a good girl. Unless you would rather I be a bad boy, Kakashi said abruptly before substituting himself with Naruto and disappearing in a puff of smoke. I sighed as I began to absently stroke Naruto's fluffy hair. Naruto immediately draped an arm around my waist and started to pet my own hair. Well, I began, then cleared my throat. All beautiful people, look my way, please. Ino's head turned towards me along with Kiba. I said, all beautiful people. Shikamaru, Choji, Karen, Shino, turn your heads my way. After they complied, I beamed. Let's have a party at my place right now. To celebrate surviving the exams so far. That doesn't seem like much of an accomplishment to celebrate, Kiba said dubiously. I pointedly looked at the blood stain that was all that was left of Gaara's opponent. I'm okay to party, Ino declared. Shikamaru, Choji, you two better come along or else. But Shikamaru began but was cut off from Ino's fiery look. Can we have pizza? Naruto asked. Of course, dear, I said. In fact, why don't you go invite Hina-chan for me and I'll go get the party set up. Everyone be there in an hour or face my wrath. Mwahaha. Okay, Naruto agreed, releasing me and hurrying off. Ino smiled at me. Will it turn into a sleepover? I winked at her. You can sleep with me anytime you want, honey. Karen began hesitantly. I'm really flattered, but I have to stay with my team. Since we don't live in Konoha, we have a curfew while we stay here during the exam. Boo. Fine. Let's hang out some other time then. Naruto declared. Everyone. Meet up at my place in 2 hours. Scene change, a few hours later, and the party had started off. We decided to change into pajamas because Ino made a rule that I couldn't pants people if they wore pajamas, so everyone rapidly went back home to grab pajamas. They would be back shortly though, and while I waited for them I did a few yoga stretches in my bedroom. Because when they did return I would initiate a rousing game of killer. One person plays the serial killer and everyone else has to run away and not get caught by the killer. No one attack the killer, but the killer can manhandle everyone else. Basically like tag and hide and go seek, but with serial killers and victims. Special rules could be added to the mix, such as the killer can place booby traps and only certain victims are able to disarm them, etc. Or light can weaken the killer. During one of my poses I paused though because someone special grabbed my attention. I felt him before I saw him. As soon as I felt his presence I threw open my window and halfway hung out of it in excitement. Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi, who was crouching vertically on the wall beside my window, gave me an eye smile and small wave. Evening, Sakura-chan. Are you here for the party? I asked him, twisting my body around so I sat on the windowsill with my back facing outwards. I stretched my arms out to him in hopes he might accept my hug despite the fact that I had already used up my allotted physical contact of the day. Do you have a moment to talk? Kakashi asked instead. Always for you. I smiled once more before leaning forward. My arms snaked around his neck and he immediately picked me up before leaping off my house and taking us to the rooftop of the nearest tall building. Once there he released me and I plopped onto the concrete roof, tying my fluffy pink robe tighter. My back was pressed up against the small stone fence that surrounded the roof and Kakashi took a seat beside me, his legs stretched out. Entirely unabashed, I leaned into him. He shoved me off. I leaned into him again. He shoved me off again. I leaned back into him. He gave a sigh. What did you want to talk about? I asked him, my right hand slowly inching towards his left hand that was in his lap. Do you know someone by the name of Obito Uchiha? Of course, I told him, nodding my head. He's a fellow disciple of the Goggle Gods. When the time has come and I proved myself worthy, he shall descend from the rosy moon and share with me the rainbow stick story. Kakashi turned his head, and for the first time I saw a look of genuine disbelief on his face. What? It's true, I told him. The goggle gods whispered it to me in a dream. That's how you know him? You dreamed about him? Yeah, I confirmed. I've dreamed about you too. The goggle gods granted me enlightenment through Kishimoto Ue. You dreamed about me? I nodded. Of course. He shook his head, looking up at the stars. Why do I feel like you honestly believe this? I would never lie about the goggle gods, I answered. And I would never lie to you, Kakashi-sensei. Really? About important stuff, I amended. I would totally lie to you if it gave me the opportunity to steal your shirts and pants or for a fantastic prank. Thanks for the warning, he muttered dryly. I gently took his hand, giving it a firm squeeze before releasing it and placing both my hands in my lap. Is that all you wanted to ask about? He was quiet for a couple of minutes before he gave another sigh and said yes. Okay. I gave his arm a quick kiss, since it was the only thing at my eye level, and I doubt he would be okay if I kissed his cheek, before I stood up and stretched. I brushed off the bits of dirt that had gotten onto my robe. You're welcome to come to the party with me. I'll have to decline. For now, I allowed, then I smiled at him as brightly and warmly as I could. I love you, Kakashi-sensei. I sincerely hope you have a good night. You can't say that so easily, Kakashi told me, finally looking away from the sky and back at me. You take that word too lightly. No, I don't, I disagreed, frowning at him. I say I love you because I do. I've seen you for who you are, Kakashi-sensei, and I love what I've seen. Even if you return to a rule-obsessed, angsty little preteen, I'll still love ya. I'll still be by your side, and I'll support you however I can. He stared at me, then stood up, clearly getting ready to leave. I don't love you the same way I love Naruto, I clarified for him. Be prepared to be pursued heavily when I'm old enough. What the hell do you call this then? Harmless teasing, I said with a saucy wink. He made a funny, frustrated noise, then disappeared in a puff. I gave a woeful sigh. Well, if it doesn't work out, I'll have to find a way for Kisame-sama to agree to be my backup plan, or better yet, live it out harem style. Scene change, 31 days until the tournament. I woke up in between two warm bodies and I gave a blissful sigh. The girl on my left gave a mumble while the girl on the right curled closer. My eyes slowly opened and I looked over to find Ino body hugging a giant fluffy cat pillow on my left, her back pressed against me and only the top of her head peeking out from under the covers. On my right was Hinata using my stomach as a pillow and curled up into a tight little ball of cuteness. I relished the moment. Waking up surrounded by awesome and adorable people is how every morning should start, I thought decidedly. There was a snort and a sigh, and I looked up to find a curled-up Naruto hugging his pillow and snoring lightly. I knew Shikamaru was likely on the opposite side of him, with Choji right beside him, relishing being able to sleep in. The poor Nara would never be allowed to sleep in as late as he wanted if he stayed at home, which was likely why he all too easily agreed to stay over and encouraged Ino's idea of a sleepover. I knew Kiba and Shino were sleeping somewhere nearby, but I couldn't see them with my current angle since I was still on the floor being cuddled by two of my dearest friends. Sometime around 3 last night, everyone realized how late it was and how tired they were. Kaa-chan had stayed up with all of us creating snack after snack, followed by some cake and brownies and all sorts of sugary goodness that I would never be allowed to eat so much of in one night if it weren't for having a party. She insisted that all of us stayed over for the night after Ino mentioned a slumber party and proceeded to grab a plethora of blankets and pillows, more than I even knew we had. We all moved the furniture in the living room around to give us some space before we laid everything out and tried to fall asleep. Obviously, we didn't fall asleep until like 5, but still. The smell of bacon had been what originally woke me up, and I knew the others would be waking up too. No one could resist Ka-chan's bacon with pancake batter poured over them and cooked to a perfect golden brown. No one. There was a quiet bark and I heard some moans slowly fill the room. Ino mumbled and I felt her stretch beside me tugging on some of the blankets we shared. Hinata sat up slowly rubbing the sleep out of her eyes and yawning widely. "Good morning, beautiful ladies," I greeted sitting up and hugging Hinata. The princess mumbled a soft reply, groggily hugging me in return. Ino sat up by that point and leaned heavily on me. "I smell bacon," Naruto whispered sitting up and rubbing his face. "You would be correct," Ka-chan called out from the kitchen. "Bacon, pancakes, eggs, hash browns, toast. I've got breakfast ready for everyone." "Praise be to breakfast," I heard Choji declare. Like one mob of groggy pre-teens, we got out of our sleeping mats, bags and nest of blankets and congregated into the kitchen to help ourselves to the buffet-style breakfast Ka-chan had set up. Once we had all grabbed food, we gathered on the floor of the living room and ate quietly, talking with one another as we still woke up. Kiba took a long swig of orange juice before he grimaced. "Last night was crazy. I can't believe how intense that game of killer got. I take everything up to an 11, I said. "Every night is wild with me." "I believe it," Kiba agreed, shoving a pancake in his mouth. "Fucking intense." "Watch that mouth of yours," Ino immediately scolded. "Don't fucking use that foul-ass language in the presence of a lady." She then giggled at her irony, which made Hinata and me giggle too. Naruto, who was sitting on the opposite side of me, reached over to grab some of my bacon and I immediately swatted his hand away. He grabbed some more anyway. I gave an offended noise and Hinata immediately placed some bacon on my plate and I gave her a bright smile in return. "What time is it anyway?" Naruto asked, eating my bacon. Ka-chan poured me another glass of strawberry milk. "Almost noon." We have to go meet with Kakashi-sensei," I remembered. Naruto moaned. "Ugh. He'll probably be late anyway. Even if he isn't, bastard deserves to wait on us for a change." "I don't want to keep him waiting," I fretted. Ino reached behind Hinata and patted my shoulder. "Sakura-chan, think of it this way, he'll have to think about you while he waits for you. Don't you want him thinking about you?" Oh. You make an excellent point." I then nodded. "Very well, we'll eat then go meet up with everyone." Woo! Naruto cheered. Scene change, we met up with Kakashi about an hour later and I tackled him per usual. I was surprised that Sasuke wasn't there, but then when I thought about it, it wasn't all that surprising. Kakashi pried me off him. "I have a sensei scheduled to meet with you both and help you train for the tournament. I will be taking Sasuke away for private lessons." Naruto glared. "What the hell? Why does he get special lessons while you pawn off on someone else?" "I'm the only one who can teach him to use the Sharingan," Kakashi began. "In addition, you both know about the curse mark, so you should understand why it's important for him to be isolated." I whined. "Kakashi-sensei, I can't go a whole month without you though. That's too cruel." "Sakura-chan," Kakashi said, his tone firm but taking a gentler tone, "you can't come with us and I need you to not try and find us through your sensing ability. I have no doubt that if you put your mind to it you could track us down, but the entire point of us leaving is to avoid contact with others. Not only for Sasuke's sake, but yours as well. An entire month without Kakashi would suck, but given that it was during the exams it was fine by me." I understood very well why it was important for Sasuke to stay away from others while the seal had time to mature and properly prevent Sasuke's curse mark from spreading. If Sasuke were to completely lose control, Kakashi might have to repress him, and I was certain he wouldn't want either of us to see that happen. In addition, the Jiraiya would be coming into the village and I was beyond stoked to finally meet, hug and fangirl over him. So yes, I could deal with Kakashi running off for a month, even if it would be one of the longest months of my life, and that was counting during my first life when my mother took me off her trial medication to see what kind of symptoms of withdrawal I experienced. But I couldn't resist the potential bribery, practically begging me to take advantage of. As a haggler of life, I took it upon myself to make the most out of every opportunity given to me. It would be utterly shameful of me to ignore such an easy situation. I gave him a wide-eyed puppy dog look. But Kakashi-sensei. Oh fine, but only if you give me a kiss on the cheek when you return. I won't accept anything less. I knew that was probably never going to happen, but I had to highball now with a kiss on the cheek in order to get the perfectly reasonable 2 hugs when he returned. Fine, Kakashi agreed. Now that that's settled, I gasped, my heart soaring. Ebisu will be arriving here shortly. Behave. No, but Grabs. Don't try to look for us. Bye. Then he was gone and I never felt more happy in my entire life. Sakura-chan? Your face is a little red, are you okay? Scene change. I chose not to stick around to meet Ebisu. I had nothing against the man, of course, but I knew he would only want to enhance the basics, and I was already doing that on my own. I needed someone who could actually help me in the upcoming tournament. That, and I didn't want to chance ruining Naruto's meeting with his godfather. So off to the library I went in search of ninjutsu I could learn and use for my upcoming fight with Tenten. The librarian greeted me with a warm, tired smile, instantly recognizing me. I returned a few of the medical texts I had finished thoroughly memorizing before inquiring where I could find ninjutsu scrolls for genin rank or below. Elemental jutsus were forbidden from academy students, but some were allowed to be checked out for genin. My nature was Earth Doton, which was fan-friggin-tastic since I was going for a poison support area medical thing. Ideally I could hide behind some bombus walls while peppering the battlefield with poisons and waiting for them to take effect. At least that was the end goal I had in mind for my offense. I searched the library for any form of wall-like jutsu I could use, and after an hour of searching I found what I was looking for. I checked out the scroll and headed to our usual training grounds. I wasn't too surprised that Naruto and Ebisu were no longer there. Likely Ebisu wanted Naruto to perfect water walking, which wasn't a bad idea since Naruto and Sasuke both still struggled to fight while water walking at the same time, and took him to the hot springs. After looking over the instructions for the jutsu several times, I began the process of learning to draw upon my elemental chakra. I had plenty of experience of manipulating elemental chakra since I had to purge it from my own chakra before I could use Shosen. It was simple enough to focus on it exclusively. Of course, that didn't mean I mastered the technique instantly or with a lot of ease. It was something new, and a lot of ninjutsus worked like muscle memory, with your chakra acting as a muscle. It took time and a lot of practice before your body and your chakra could create the technique without much thought. Not to mention that while I had been steadily increasing my reserves, they were still below average for genin. My civilian background prevented me from having the genetic advantage like many of my friends, and consequentially, I had to work twice as hard to have an average amount of chakra. On the bright side, thanks to my amazing chakra control, I could utilize what little I had for maximum impact. I worked on jutsu throughout the day and well into the night. I decided that I would work on it for a few more days before I checked on Naruto and hopefully meet Jiraiya. Scene change, 29 days until the tournament. I knocked on Naruto's door well before sunrise, one breakfast for 5, courtesy of Ka-chan, in hand. There was a minute of silence before the door opened and a groggy Naruto stood before me. He beamed as soon as he saw me and tackled me. Sakura-chan. Good morning, my son, I greeted him, kissing his cheek. How has your training been? It's okay, Naruto said, pulling away from me and ushering me inside. I'm actually training with this huge pervert now. He reminds me a lot of you actually, except nowhere near as fun and cuddly. Ah. You say the sweetest things. I cooed, holding up the giant bento box. Kai-chan made us breakfast. How's about you introduce me to your new sensei today? Naruto agreed immediately, all too happily accepting the bento box and beginning to eat 3 out of the 5 meals while I ate the other 2. Hey! Shinobi and kunoichi metabolisms combined with puberty was nothing short of demanding. Akimichi literally had to be constantly eating extremely fatty foods in order to gain weight and keep a decent amount of fat in their system. We ate our breakfast and Naruto put on a pot of tea for us. Once we were satisfied, he went about getting ready for the day, and by about 800 we headed off to meet Jiraiya. It was a bit of walk to get to the secluded forest on the outskirts of Konoha, but it was enjoyable since Naruto had plenty to talk about. When we arrived, Jiraiya was already there sitting on a tree stump with his arms folded across his chest. I squealed upon seeing him, causing him to jump, and then I threw myself at him with my arms outstretched. Jiraiya-sama. Whoa, this is a first, Jiraiya said, accepting my hug tackle and patting the top of my head. Who's the cutie? This is my best friend Sakura-chan, Naruto explained. She wanted to meet you. I love you, I told Jiraiya. I am a huge fan of yours. I haven't read your Ika yet, but I want you to know that I am another mega super pervert in the making. Really? Jiraiya chuckled. It's true, Naruto said she has her own harem. Really? Also I have a big of a favor to ask you, I began, blushing in embarrassment. I'm not allowed to leave the village over personal missions since I'm a genin, and the goggle gods told me you would be heading towards that direction when you looked for Boozy Princess. What? Jiraiya deadpanned. Naruto frowned. What did the goggle gods tell you now? I need the salamander summons, I explained, pulling out a small map I had drawn and giving it to Jiraiya. The goggle gods told me that Hanzo-sama disowned his salamanders during a fit of paranoia and hid them away here. What? Jiraiya repeated. When you rescue the Boozy Princess, I continued, nonplussed, you'll pass by where he put the scroll. If you could bring that back to me, I can make it worth your while. Jiraiya squinted at me. You make absolutely no sense. For starters, why would I agree to this? I smiled at him. I'm the greatest wingman you will ever encounter. You will never be without research with me around. I highly. Naruto shook his head. She's not someone you doubt, pervy sage. Let me prove it to you, I offered. I'll come back here around 7 tonight and I'll treat you to a night out. If for some odd reason you don't get a swarm of women around you or have the time of your life, then I'll buy you lunch every day until the exams are over. If I do fulfill my end of the bargain, though, you bring me the salamanders. You're a box full of crazy, aren't you? And fun. Okay. If I get bored an hour in, though, I'm taking my food and leaving. You have yourself a deal. Scene change, 3 a.m. the following morning. So do we have ourselves a deal? I asked Jiraiya, looking down at him while he was being hand-fed and doted upon by 3 beautiful darlings who cooed at him. He looked up at me a little drunk, but with a wide smile on his face. Sakura. You and I are going to get along great. I know. Praise be to the goggle gods. Praise be to the goggle gods. Scene change, 25 days until the tournament. I sat beside Hinata while she worked on her calligraphy, filling her in on what Naruto was doing for training. Today she was resting from the intense training her father was putting her through in preparation for facing Temari. Naruto-kun is amazing, Hinata declared when I had finished. To be trained by a sannin, no less. He must be so strong. Jiraiya-sama is the super-powered male version of me, I told her. Jiraiya-sama must be wonderful, Hinata decided, setting down her brush and turning to face me fully. How is your training going, Sakura-chan? Pretty well. I've got a sturdy wall, but not sure if it'll hold up under Tenten's attack. How about you? Well, Hinata said with a bright smile. It is a poor matchup for me since my style is taijutsu dominant, and that would make it exceedingly easy for Shikamaru to capture me with his technique, but father has a plan and we've been working on it for a while. I felt genuinely happy to see Hinata look so at ease, confident and sincerely happy. She was nothing like she was just a handful of months ago, and the fact that I was part of the reason for that change warmed me like a gentle fire on a cold day. "Excuse me," Hayashi said as he opened the door to Hinata's room. He gave me a terse nod and a thin smile to Hinata. "Will you be accompanying us for lunch and a spar, Sakura? I never say no to free food." 17 days until the tournament. I gave Karen's hand a squeeze as I guided her through Konoha and gave her the grand tour. We hadn't been able to meet up much as her instructor didn't want her wandering off without supervision, especially since she was the only one from their village to make it to the finals, which made her all levels of nervous. It took much needling on my part before her instructor would allow her to walk around the village with me. Karen took every sight in with bright eyes. There were a few times she felt anxious since Konoha was so big in comparison to Kusa. She wasn't used to large crowds of people, but when that happened we always took a break. I met up with Hinata and Ino with Karen, and the four of us spent part of the day touring Konoha and the other half of the day doing mock spars. When it was time to return Karen due to her curfew, we left the young Uzumaki feeling happy and hopeful. I sincerely hoped she would stay in touch in the years to follow and that I did enough to keep her happy when, if she left with Orochimaru. Scene change, 10 days until the tournament. I slept in a bit that day, only getting up when Kaa-chan came up to wake me up with kisses and tickles. I decided to spend the day recovering since I had been working non-stop on my plan against Tenten. I figured the invasion would probably still happen around the same time as Kanon during Sasuke's and Gaara's match, and there wouldn't be much point preparing to fight Hina-chan. I had absolute faith in her ability to defeat Shikamaru. Even if for some reason I did fight her, I would likely forfeit. Winning was way more important to her than it was to me. Aika was nice, but making Hinata smile was priceless. I had picked up one other ninjutsu to learn for my fight with Tenten, and I found it was pretty easy to get the hang of. It didn't require nearly as much chakra as creating thick walls. Kaa-chan patted my hair and motioned for me to sit with her on the couch. "What are your plans today, Sa-chan? More training?" "I'm going to rest today," I told her. "I need to figure out how to make one of the poisons I want to use. It's a fast-acting sedative that the enemy only has to breathe in. Like a sleeping gas?" "Yeah. I'm not very good at chemistry though." Kaa-chan tuttered. "I don't believe that for a second. Cooking is chemistry, you know. Cooking is a different kind of chemistry than making poisons." "I bet not," Kaa-chan declared. "Tell you what, why don't I help you with it today? I bet I could show you a thing or two. You may be good in the kitchen, but you still have a lot to learn, little Sa-chan." Rolling my eyes, I kissed her cheek. I know. But hey, if you want to help, I won't say no." Kaa-chan beamed. "And what do you know? Kaa-chan could make poisons. Guess it wasn't too different from cooking after all." Scene change, day of the tournament. On the day of the tournament, I woke up to a glorious breakfast and Kaa-chan and Tu-chan doting on me. The sheer pride rolling off the two of them made my tummy flip-flop pleasantly and my chest feel warm with their love. The three of us walked to the tournament together before I had to go. "Bye-bye," I told them, kissing each of their cheeks. "We're so proud of you, Sa-chan," Kia-chan told me, kissing my forehead. "Kick some ass for us, okay?" Tu-chan ruffled my hair and kissed the top of my head. "I will," I promised them. They went off to find their seats and I went off the competitor balcony where Naruto and Hinata were already waiting for me. Shikamaru arrived shortly afterwards, followed by Karen, then Tenten and Lee. Gaara came next and I greeted him with a cheerful wave and introducing him to my precious people. Kiba was the last to arrive and he was as boisterous as he could be. We talked quietly with one another until Genma called for the exam to begin. He launched into a speech to get the crowd going and Naruto asked me quietly, "Sense Kakashi-sensei and the bastard?" I shook my head. "No. They'll come though, don't worry. It'll just be fashionably late." Naruto snorted at that. Gunma's voice carried over our conversation. "Our first match today will be against two of our very own. The Hyuga heiress Hinata and the Nara heir Shikamaru. There was some excited cheering while said people began to head down. "Kick his ass, Hina-chan," I screamed out at her. "I like you both and support you both," Naruto shouted. "Hina-chan is way cuter." Shikamaru sighed. "We have loud friends." Hinata giggled before she bowed graciously to Shikamaru. "Good luck, Shikamaru-san." "You too," Shikamaru mumbled. Gunma motioned for them to begin and right away Hinata danced away from Shikamaru's shadows. She maneuvered gracefully away from each of his attacks, fluttering about like a butterfly. There wasn't any bit of hesitation from her and each of her movements were fluid and confident. Several times she would throw an explosive note towards Shikamaru to keep him on her toes, but for the most part she danced. After many minutes, Shikamaru with his shadows leaving the princess to stand alone in the center of the arena. Then a smile bloomed across her face and she moved with a speed I had never seen her possess. She crossed the distance between the two in a matter of seconds, twisting her body and shadow just barely out of Shikamaru's reach. Her hands moved and a flash of light filled the entire arena. She used a flashbang. When the light cleared, Hinata was already creating distance again and Shikamaru's arms dangled uselessly beside him. He gave a low groan. "Forfeit. There's no way I could overcome this without serious damage to myself." The crowd roared its approval and Hinata immediately went over to Shikamaru to unblock his tenketsus. The two of them returned to our balcony where I hugged Hinata and congratulated her. The next matchup is against two of our aspiring kunoichi. Tenten Higurashi against Sakura Haruno. I swung over the railing and dropped down into the arena while Tenten followed behind me using the stairs at a much calmer pace. I took a bow towards Tenten and she amicably returned it with one of her own. She looked up and smiled at me. "Let's both have a good fight now." "Yep." I agreed. "May the goggle gods watch over us." Sure." "Begin." Right off the bat, Tenten threw open one of her scrolls and began to throw a barrage of weapons towards me, anticipating that I had already summoned up a decent-sized wall to protect myself from the barrage. Within seconds, I pulled out one of the gas bombs I created and buried it inside the ground. Another few seconds and I leapt away from the wall just in time for her to toss in a bomb to completely destroy my once safe spot. She noticed me immediately and began to focus her long-ranged attacks from me, but I was already calling up another wall. By the time I planted another gas bomb, she had destroyed my wall again. Our dance continued for 3 more walls. I was slowly circling her and now her back was turned to where I had planted my first 2 bombs, before she let out a growl of frustration. "Enough. You won't be able to hide or defend from this." "Sashoryu." Tenten summoned 2 scrolls from her side and leapt up into the air. I gave a wince knowing I wouldn't be able to entirely hide behind a wall for her attack. I had to do my best dodging on my own, and what injuries I gathered I would have to heal somehow throughout the match. Using every inch of my reflexes and honed skills, I began to focus entirely on dodging weapon after weapon. They flew with enough force that they dug into the ground with small bits of explosion obscuring both our views. Many of them still grazed me though, and I could feel blood drip down my arms and legs. I heard Tenten land on the ground and I knew that she would soon pull upon the wires and begin her second barrage. I had only a second to react. "Doryuso!" I shouted out, creating the bird seal. My chakra lashed out instantaneously to 3 of the gas bombs I had planted, now behind Tenten. Doryuso was a high C-rank ninjutsu that created small spears from the ground that launched themselves at a target. The range and power behind the spears weren't significant enough to use often in combat, but they could be used underneath the user to give them a boost or to launch something else. I used them to launch the gas bombs directly at Tenten from behind her. Her head snapped around, but she couldn't fully dodge the 3 poisonous explosions that bombarded her. She gave a gasp, dropping to her knees and clutching at her throat. While she struggled to breathe, it only hurt to breathe in and wasn't toxic, I called upon my Shosen and healed the worst of my scratches. By the time I had healed up 5 injuries, Tenten had effectively passed out. Ganma nodded at her. Winner Sakura Haruno. The crowd roared and I took a bow. Medics came out to carry Tenten away and one of them turned to me to inquire about the poison. Sedative, I reassured them she'll wake up in an hour on her own. When I returned to the other contestants, Hinata and Naruto gave me congratulatory hugs. Great job, Sakura-chan. I knew you could do it. Hey, that was a poison, right? Does that mean you can make your own poisons now? That poison I actually made with my Kaa-chan, I told Naruto. Naruto gasped. Your Kaa-chan knows everything. I nodded. She's almost as knowledgeable as the Goggle Gods. Wow. Our third match will be Kiba Inuzuka against Naruto Uzumaki. Genma called out. Naruto and Kiba both let out joyful yips and jumped off the balcony in a scramble to reach the center of the arena first. Ganma called for it to begin and Naruto created about 40 clones. Their match was nothing but a slugfest. Not once did Naruto go in himself, but he kept sending clones after clones after clones to fight Kiba and Akamaru. Unfortunately for the partnered duo, there was no real way to tell the difference between the real Naruto and the clones without the Byakugan or making the clones dispel. So while Kiba was fighting hordes of clones, and growing increasingly frustrated, Naruto started setting up booby traps, burying explosive tags for example, and guiding his enemy to them through the clones. It was rather funny and a little sad to watch the entire match. It was completely one-sided and surprisingly cunning of Naruto. One explosion was enough to throw Kiba off his balance for the hordes to dogpile on him and knock him out. Winner Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto bowed repeatedly towards the cheering crowd before making his way back up towards us and giving me a thumbs up. Kiba had to be carried away in a stretcher. You're my little trapper, aren't you? I cooed, rushing towards him and patting his head. As the king of pranks, I can't have you be the better booby trapper, he told me seriously. As the queen of pranks, I accept your challenge. He stared at me. This is a war you won't win, Sakura-chan. I won't have mercy on a rival even if it's you. I winked at him. Honey, you can't handle my level of madness. At dawn tomorrow we go to war then. To the victor the spoils. What am I going to do with you two? Hinata sighed, looking at us both endearingly. Love us, we said in perfect unison, then grinned at each other. Our next match will be against Karen Uzumaki and Lee Rock. All of us turned towards the extremely nervous Karen and we started to wish her good luck. Lee gave her an encouraging smile. Not to worry, fair maiden. Let's have a good fight. Why, yeah, Karen stammered, looking sick. The two headed down to the arena and Hinata, Naruto, and I moved over to the balcony to watch. Shikamaru joined on the opposite side of Naruto to watch. Begin. My heart skipped a beat when I sensed Kakashi and Sasuke, I guess. They both appeared in the contestant booth while Karen struggled to keep pace with Lee. Lee could see his opponent was clearly below his level and he was taking care not to severely injure her. He gave her time to recover between each attack while throwing in some encouraging words for her to not give up. There was a swirl of leaves and a puff of smoke and Kakashi and Sasuke appeared behind us. Naruto beamed. Bastard. You made it faster than what my eyes could follow. I felt a pressure on my right cheek and then it was gone and Kakashi was giving me an eye smile. Thanks for leaving us be. I spluttered. Wait, did you? Oh my god, that does not count. I did not have time to prepare. You didn't specify when Kakashi told me. Damn, my inability to be specific. I cursed myself, then I latched onto him and hugged him as tight as I could. I have 30 hugs to make up for. Kakashi patted my back. Sasuke cleared his throat. So what did we miss? Hinata-chan won her match against Shikamaru. Naruto began making Hinata blush when he gave her an appraising look. Then Sakura-chan won against Tenten. I of course beat Kiba with my awesomeness and now we're watching Karen fight Bushy Brows. I nuzzled Kakashi's chest, relishing the fact that he wasn't pushing me away. Sasuke looked over at Gaara, who leaned against the wall and watched everyone with half-lidded eyes and barely restrained killing intent. Winner Lee Rock! Our eyes drifted back towards the arena where Karen was being carried away in a stretcher, entirely unconscious, not actually looking too bad considering. Lee gave her an apologetic look before he returned to the balcony. Guess I'm next, Sasuke said, hopping over the railing. Gaara was already moving towards the center of the arena, an excited smile on his face. Then it will be me and you, Sakura-chan, Hinata said, smiling warmly at me. Let's both do our best, okay? You're too cute to fight, I protested. But if you really want me to give it my all, you know I could never refuse you. I would appreciate it, Hinata told me. I turned my face back into Kakashi, already knowing exactly how Sasuke and Gaara's fight would go. Fate no Jutsu would strike again, I bet. Kakashi absent-mindedly rubbed my back and then I felt Naruto inch towards us and I wrapped him to our hug and the two of us hugged Kakashi with him patting both of our backs. This counts as all 30 hugs, Kakashi told me, if I let you both hug me for another 5 minutes. Deal. Hugs are addictive, Naruto whispered. You guys are really close, Shikamaru commented. Hinata giggled. Isn't it adorable? That's one way of looking at it, I suppose. It's wonderful to see such passion students have for their teachers, Lee declared excitedly. I embrace Guy-sensei as often as I can. Then the piercing scream of Gaara filled the arena and hell broke loose. Chapter 10, Introducing Brightheart. Feathers fell gently around us and I felt the genjutsu wanting to take a hold of me. I immediately dispelled it out, disliking the feeling of foreign chakra inside of me. Kakashi dispelled it over Naruto and Naruto lunged away from him, his eyes wide as he watched Gaara begin his transformation into Shikaku. Hinata dispelled the genjutsu over Lee and Shikamaru and Kakashi barked orders at Naruto to stay back. But look! Sasuke's going after Gaara. Shit, Kakashi breathed, then looked at all of us. Okay everyone, but Sakura, you need to bring Sasuke back. Why is he sending so many? He might think this is a chance for Orochimaru to attack Sasuke. Then why won't he go instead? He's a Jonin. He has to protect the civilians first. Genin don't have that rule yet. He wasted no time in summoning Pakken and all of them exchanged glances before they followed the cute pug. What do I do, sensei? I asked him. You're coming with me and you're healing the civilians, Kakashi said. Stay close. When a medical tent is set up, I'll take you there. Okay. Kakashi and I leapt off the balcony and climbed up to the massive sleeping population above. There were countless shinobi fighting one another around the civilians and several enemy shinobi tried to kill the helpless civilians. It seemed like the Otogekure shinobi goal was not to kill the Konoha shinobi but to slaughter the civilians. The unfortunate truth was that not every civilian could be perfectly protected by our shinobi. Chunin were ordered to begin the evacuation but they could only carry so many and civilians didn't have the natural resistance to genjutsus that trained shinobi and kunoichi had. Breaking them from a genjutsu would take time we did not have, and even if they were broken there was no guarantee they wouldn't cause more trouble by panicking. Guy met up with us soon and the two of them fought off many nameless enemies while I worked to save what lives I could. When I healed someone I carried them over to a small pile so they were all packed tightly together and it was easier for Kakashi and Guy to defend them. It was very different than any fight I had been in. I wasn't fighting for my life. It wasn't a glorious battle between two matched opponents. It was a slaughter. The Otogekure shinobi did everything they could to try and cut our population. In the distance I could hear screams and explosions rock throughout our village and I knew the invasion was going on elsewhere. It wasn't kept to the arena. The people that I saw today was only a small portion of the people in danger. The atmosphere was thick and uncomfortable, and more than once I reached a civilian whose heart no longer beat. Eventually, though, all civilians were cleared out, dead or alive, and Kakashi herded me off to a medical tent set up in one of the safe zones. Scene change. It was well into the night before I was turned away from the makeshift medical tents that had been set up. Per Kakashi's orders, I had remained on the grounds offering my medical assistance to all those around. Throughout the day and on into the night, I had remained there. I did not see either of my teammates since Naruto left after Sasuke, nor did I see Kakashi since late afternoon. Hanako Suzumi, chief surgeon at the Shinobi Hospital, had been in charge of my tent. She had taken note of me and then sent me on my way home since I had been up for well over 12 hours. She said she would send for me if needed, but otherwise I was to rest and not return until I felt 100%. My body ached as I made my way through the destroyed streets. It was disheartening to see such destruction. Streets I had become familiar with were badly damaged with entire roofs gone. I didn't see any bodies though, which made me feel grateful that the cleanup crew had worked quickly. The village would prioritize rebuilding essentials, hospitals, roads, etc., before they rebuilt the houses. Those whose home was destroyed and did not have anywhere else to go would be given shelter at the community center below the Hokage's tower. Most people, though, had family to turn to around the village, and likely only a handful of families would have to stay there for the week or two it took to rebuild their home. As I neared my home, I stumbled upon seeing the neighborhood. Was Sakura's neighborhood hit in the original story as well? Suddenly feeling anxious, I hurried to my home and my breath caught in my throat. It was a nice, quiet little home that had been filled with pictures, doilies, and flowers. It was well used and lovingly cared for. There was a hole in my home. There was a hole that left a gaping, angry wound throughout my home. The front door was off its hinges. Stepping inside, my boots crunched on broken glass shards. There were gouges on the walls, chunks of wallpaper missing or drooping, depressingly destroyed furniture. I felt as if something icy was clutching at my neck, and my body moved stiffly as if guided by some unseen force. There was a smell. A smell I had grown familiar with. And stains. I could see the stains. Discarded kunai. Scraps. Burns. People fought in there. I reached the kitchen. I took a deep breath and I slowly sat down at the kitchen table. There was a hole in my home. There was a hole that left a gaping, angry wound throughout my home. There was no upstairs. Moonlight poured into the kitchen from the hole, bathing it in a soft bluish light. I folded my hands together onto the table, a chill settling inside of me. Time passed. The moon had risen high enough in the sky that I knew it was around midnight. I could hear people moving throughout the streets and I could sense their chakra. A man appeared before me, tired. His jonin attire was well worn with a few scrapes throughout it. He had a large black messenger bag slung over his shoulder. Sakura Haruno? He asked, presenting me with his identification. Yes, I answered. He opened his bag and he handed me 2 scrolls. They were each the size of my palm and they had a black label on it that was the kanji for I understood. Thank you, I said, and I smiled at the man. He shifted. Do you all be fine? I know what to do, I lied, my smile stretching wider. Have a pleasant night. He left. I placed each scroll on the table and I stared at them. I took a deep breath. I took another deep breath. I took another, and I tried to breathe, but I couldn't. I gasped and choked, the air coming in and out of me too quickly. My shoulders shook and my hands clenched tightly as I fought to catch my breath. The world was spinning and I couldn't breathe. Everything was tilted and cold and I couldn't breathe. My hands clutched at my upper arms and I brought my knees up to my chest, burying my face into them, trying to breathe. Trying not to feel like I was suffocating. My lips were turning numb and my breaths were coming out in hiccups and my body shuddered violently. There was a hand on my shoulder. I froze, dread entering inside of me even as I tried to gasp for air. Shakily I looked up. Kakashi placed his other hand over my mouth as he squatted down to meet me at eye level. Calm down. Breathe with me. In. Out. In. Out. It took several tries, but eventually I was able to match my breathing with his. His gaze steadily met my own and he slowly withdrew his hands. Do you have family in the village? I mutely shook my head, my eyes drifting over to Kakashi stood up. Can you walk? No. I nodded my head and wobbly stood up. My legs were paper and the moment I put pressure on them they folded. Kakashi caught me before I hit the ground and he swung me up to carry me bridal style. I felt wobbly and cold, another violent shudder raging throughout me. What about K-Ka-chan and T2-chan? Kakashi picked up both of the storage scrolls and placed them into his back pocket before he shoo-shined out of my home that had big hole in it like angry wound. Everything was a blur and I knew it was because Kakashi was moving too quickly for me to process what I was seeing. When he stopped moving it was because we had reached some kind of door and he had to set me down to unlock it. I fell onto the floor, my legs still not working and my mind circling around the fact that there was a hole in my home. The door opened and he picked me back up and carried me to a bathroom. Then he sat me on the floor and he summoned Pakken and then he left and shut the door. Kiddo? Pakken inquired. What are you, Reek? And we're in Kakashi's bathroom. I stared mutely at him. Pakken sniffed me over and he looked around before he nodded. Yeah, okay. Pup, can you undress yourself? I nodded and shakily I reached to pull off my hoodie. I already took it off at the medical tent. My hands grasped at my white cami and I tugged it off along with my sports bra. I sat it on a wooden counter that was halfway up the wall. Pakken sniffed at me, then pulled out the bathroom stool. I finished getting undressed and I sat on the shower stool. Pakken leapt up and turned on the water. Hot, way too hot, but I didn't care enough to protest. Water poured out from the faucet above me. The contrasting water to my body temperature caused goosebumps to crawl up my skin and I gave an involuntary shudder. I hadn't realized how cold I was until the water hit me. Pakken brought over a brush and some basic body washington. My hands moved robotically and I did as instructed. While I cleaned myself, Pakken wobbled over to the bathtub, then plopped in 3 red balls, salt balls likely, before turning the water on. Don't forget to wash your hair, Pakken told me, nudging a 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner bottle towards me. Get the blood out. Blood. 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 Did they have blood on them? Did they suffer? Oi, Pakken growled at me, hitting me with his paw. Stop thinking. Don't think, only do as you're told right now. Focus on cleaning your hair. I stopped thinking and I cleaned my hair. By the time I was done, per Pakken's satisfaction, the tub had already finished being filled. Pakken turned off the shower and then motioned for me to get in the tub. My body moved obediently and I sat down in the comfortably warm water. My muscles immediately began to cry in relief as the salt balls worked their magic. Okay, Pakken said, pushing the stool over to the edge of the tub so he could sit in it and be eye level with me. Now, pup, it's time to relax. What relaxes you? Ka-chan's cooking. I don't know. Pakken's eyes narrowed and he snorted. Fine. Then we'll talk about what relaxes me. Pakken began to paint a pretty picture of some relaxing sceneries. It was hard to imagine them because I felt like my mind was filled with words of home, fault, guilt, Ka-chan and Tu-chan. There was no more room for pleasantries, I believed. Ever still I tried to picture them and I did try to relax. His constant talking soothed me the most in the end though. It gave me something easy to focus on and a chance to not think about anything else. After maybe 15 minutes passed by, there was a knock and the door cracked open a tiny bit. No one came in though and Pakken hopped off from his stool to inspect it. After a moment he opened the door more fully and dragged in a plastic bag. "You ready to get out, pup?" I nodded, my hands already moving to unclog the drain. As the water rapidly disappeared, I wobbly stood up and grabbed the nearest towel. For a moment I felt my heart grow a bit lighter at the fact that it smelled like Kakashi. A part of me was instantly comforted by that smell, and I took another moment to sniff it before I used it. Pakin opened the plastic bag and dragged out a package of brand new underwear and pajamas. "Kakashi must have bought these," Pakin commented, biting the package of underwear and holding it out to me. I took it from his jaws and opened it with ease, pulling out a pair of plain white undies and slipping them on. I changed into the pink pajamas, with little strawberries on it, and then I left the bathroom with Pakin. The bathroom was down the hallway, it would seem, and there were 2 other rooms attached to said hallway. One of them was closed and I sensed Kakashi in the other one. I went into that room, Pakin trailing behind me. I found a room that was covered wall to wall in bookcases, with a desk shoved against one of them and stacks of books covering the floor. In the center of the mess was a futon and many pillows and blankets and all the other dogs in the pack. Kakashi was holding a tray of food and, maybe, tea that he was trying to set down on the desk that was equally covered in books. I shifted my weight to the balls of my feet as Kakashi looked over at me. He cocked his head towards the bed. "Sit." I sat down on the mat and Bull immediately pulled covers over my lap and the dogs converged around me, forming a tight circle. Pakin crawled into my lap and Kakashi squatted beside me outside the circle of dogs. He handed me a bowl of fried rice and set the tray down on Bull's back. "Eat," Kakashi ordered. "I don't care if you're not hungry. You need to eat. Drink the tea too, it'll help you sleep." I gave a small nod to show that I understood and I scooped bits of the food in my mouth slowly. Kakashi watched me eat with narrowed eyes. No words were exchanged until I was done eating. Kakashi then took the tray away along with the dishes. When he returned, he told me to lay down and go to sleep. "I can't," I said softly. I don't." Kakashi squatted down in front of me, giving me his undivided attention. "There's more to this than grief." "What's wrong?" "It's my fault they're dead," I whispered, my voice cracking. "It is not, it is," I stated vehemently. It was a fact entirely undeniable. I knew with absolute certainty that if I hadn't made it to the finals they would be alive. They would have lived somehow. That was the only difference between me and Kanon, Sakura. Her parents lived. Why did I have to be so greedy? Why couldn't I have waited? Followed the canonical story? They would be alive. 2 beautiful people who absolutely did not deserve to die would be alive. And Haku and Zabuza would be dead if you stayed to canon. But are you really going to say that Ka-chan and 2-chan's lives are more valuable than Haku and Zabuza? What about the others you want to save? If you stay to canon, they'll die too. Then who else will die because I strayed? If you give up now, then their deaths would have meant nothing. I buried my face in my hands as another shudder rocked through me. I felt the dogs move around me, and one of them, Bisque, placed his head in my lap, forcing Pakin to readjust to make room. Kakashi let out a quiet sigh and whispered, "Words won't stop you from feeling how you feel now, I understand that. But I'll repeat them until they do. Sakura, you are not to blame for your parents' death." I could only shake my head, the cold guilt clawing at me viciously. My heart was frozen in a perpetual moment of despair, and for a moment I actually hated myself. When I realized how disgusted I was with myself, I felt a part of me break. Even when I was poked and prodded at like a lab rat by my own mother, I never saw myself that way. I never disliked who I saw in the mirror. Even when I died and was first reborn as Sakura, I never ever disliked who I saw in the mirror every day. If I looked in a mirror at that moment, I would despise what looked back at me. And that was heartbreaking to me. Between the guilt and that I couldn't keep back my tears any longer. They rushed out of me like a dam being broken, and I sobbed loudly. Kakashi placed a hand on top of my head and the pack moved as one to embrace me from all around. I cried myself to exhaustion. Scene change, my eyes felt heavy and my head throbbed painfully when I woke up. It was light outside and I could hear movements throughout the apartment. Packen was on my chest snoring loudly with Shiba sprawled across my lower body and Bisque partially on top of him and on my legs. I was currently using Bull as a pillow with Yurushi and Uhei on my left and Garuko curled up on my right. Dog lover paradise right there. It felt nice actually. I felt well, not okay, but definitely better. There was still guilt, and I knew it would be there for a long time, and a sense of bitterness, but I didn't hate myself. Mild dislike, yes, but not hate. Hating myself I knew would be the absolute last thing Ka-chan and Tu-chan would want for me. They were the parents that would want their daughter to live happily after their deaths. I wanted to say they were the kind of parents, the kind of people who would not blame me for their death. I wanted to. But it felt a bit like a cop-out if I thought that. Did I have the right to try and feel better so soon after their death? Was I obligated to wallow for a set amount of time? I didn't know, I didn't understand. I had all of her memories. Every part of me believed them to be my Ka-chan and Tu-chan. I loved them so much that it physically pained me they were gone. How was I supposed to deal with that? How did anyone deal with that? It was unfair. It was disgusting. This is why I hate feeling this is why I don't deal with this kind of thing. I don't know how. The frustration bubbled underneath me and I felt like I had to get up or do something. Then Kakashi was in the doorway and he gave a sharp whistle and all of the dogs rolled off me in one fluid motion. They were up, tails wagging and sniffing at me and Kakashi. Food? Bisque barked. Breakfast is ready, go, Kakashi ordered, and as one the pack ran out of the room. I stared after them before my gaze drifted up to Kakashi's eyes smile and my heart settled and I gave him a small smile. He returned it with an eye smile of his own and he held out his hand towards me. Come on, time to get up. You need to eat. I took his hand and in a single smooth motion he pulled me onto my feet. He guided me through his decently sized apartment that was way too neat and impersonal. In the living room the pack ate from large bowls. They were eating some kind of cooked meat that actually smelled like steak, not even pausing when we passed by them into the small kitchen. Kakashi pulled out a chair at the tiny table that only had 2 chairs at it and he sorta pushed, but not really me, into it. Blinking vapidly, I watched him turn towards the counter before turning back around and placing a large plate of omelets in front of me. This is about all as far as my cooking skills go, he apologized. Rice, pasta and omelets. Did you already eat? Yeah, Kakashi answered. When you're done eating we'll see what we can do about clothes. I imagine you don't carry essentials on you. Not today or yesterday. He nodded. Since you'll be staying here, what? He gave me an incredulous look. Where did you think you would be staying? I'm not a heartless monster that'll dump a girl out on the street because she can't control her hormones. That made me giggle. It came out a little strangled and hoarse though. Kakashi, I smiled at me again and I felt warmer. Naruto and Sasuke are still in the hospital, but they should be released later today if you would like to see them, Kakashi offered. I nodded my head then hesitated. Can you not tell them about? I won't. Scene change, after breakfast Kakashi gave me 3 wads of cash and an umbrella then sent Yurushi and Packen to go clothes shopping with me. He told me to get enough for at least 2 weeks along with any other essential I needed. I wore one of his training shirts, it was too big for me and I had to roll up the sleeves, and extra black sweats, I had to roll up the legs and tie the waistline with a rubber band. It felt oddly comforting actually. Packen stayed on my right and Yurushi stayed on my left as we walked quietly through the ravaged streets. There were several others who looked like they were wearing borrowed clothes, and when my eyes met there's a sense of camaraderie and understanding was exchanged. I wasn't the only one left homeless. I wasn't the only one orphaned. It gave me a sense of comfort and renewed my guilt at the same time. It was nice to know that I wasn't alone in my suffering in a twisted sense. That everyone else had struggles and they managed to make it through them. On the other hand, though, I felt like I should have done something more to prevent it. But what? Inner would ask me every time I thought that. Sacrifice yourself? Go to the Hokage and tell him everything? There's no guarantee it would stop the tragedies. If anything, it might create a larger problem that couldn't be predicted. I never had a response for her. I would never have the perfect answer. There was no simple solution. The world I lived in now was messy and complicated. I wanted to change what I could, but I had to acknowledge that there are things simply out of my reach. Unobtainable. I didn't want to acknowledge that, though. I didn't want to admit that things were unavoidable no matter what I did. Someone had to take responsibility for what happened, and it felt like it should be me. How arrogant. Most of the marketplaces weren't hit in the invasion, so the streets and shops were up and running without any issue. There were a lot of shoppers that rainy day, and I had to maneuver through quite the crowd. Thankfully, Yurushi tugged on my pants to guide me, so I was never lost, and Pakin brushed against me repeatedly to provide me with comfort and support. Still, it was well into early evening before I bought the essentials and saved the receipts, so I knew how much to pay Kakashi back, though Pakin insisted he wouldn't accept my money, and returned to Kakashi's apartment. I didn't get to see Naruto or Sasuke since I had been out on the errand all day, but I figured I could hunt them down tomorrow. I was certain they were probably both preoccupied themselves with making sure their homes were taken care of or attending the Hokage's funeral. I did make sure that Naruto's apartment wasn't hit, nor the Uchiha district. I opened the door to Kakashi's apartment and Yurushi gave me a sniff over before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Pakin headed inside and hopped onto the counter. Looks like Kakashi isn't back yet. Do you know where he was going? I asked, absently frowning. Actually, do you know if I'm staying where I slept last night, or? Yeah, that'll be your room, Pakin answered. Let's go put your stuff away, pup. The once office, now a guest room, was almost entirely empty when I walked in. All that was in there was a guest futon, a desk with a lamp and chair, and a lounging chair. I blinked in surprise at that, and then again when I realized there was a closet attached to the room. Looks like Kakashi finished putting away all those books, Pakin commented, sniffing around the room. Ah. He put them in the storage scrolls in the closet, so be careful when you go in there. I placed my numerous bags on the bed and opened the small closet. There was a box filled with scrolls about the size of my torso on the floor and many empty hangers. On the top shelf there was another empty box that I decided to use for my underwear. Idly I began to put away the clothes I bought while Pakin began to tell me a story about a sneaky fox. I remembered that it was a childhood favorite of Sakura's, and it felt pleasant to hear it again from Pakin while I worked. Half an hour later everything was put away and I decided to make dinner for all of us since Kakashi wasn't back yet. Preheating the oven to 165°C, I took out 3 eggs, 3/4 flour and 3/4 milk. I whipped the eggs until they were fluffy and airy, then poured the milk and sifted flour into it. I added salt and other seasonings, then poured the Yorkshire pudding batter into a cake pan. After assessing Kakashi's surprisingly scarce fridge, I settled on some ground pork as the meat. I lightly seared the pork along with butter and many spices before I drained the meat and added it into the batter. Then I popped it all into the oven and began to work on the vegetables. By the time I was done chopping the leeks, the front door opened and I heard Kakashi call out, "I'm home." "Welcome home," I immediately replied, and ignoring the pain I felt in my chest, I offered Pakin a bit of the pork I had cooked through. Kakashi stepped into the kitchen, assessing me as I worked. Turning to Pakin, he asked, "Did she get everything?" "Yep," Pakin confirmed. It's set up in her bedroom. Ma. Thank you. Who is available to? Bull will stay with her tonight. I turned to Pakin frowning. That's not necessary, it is they both disagreed with me immediately. Then Pakin cleared his throat. Okay pup, I'll see you later. Take care of yourself. Then he was gone in a puff of smoke. Kakashi shifted uneasily, taking off his flak and hanging it on the back of one of the kitchen chairs. Do you need any help? No. Okay. I'll leave you to it. Thank you. Scene change, dinner was quiet but not uncomfortable. I think Kakashi started to realize I found his presence comforting because after dinner he even sat down next to me on the couch while we read. We didn't exchange any words until it was time for bed though, and Kakashi summoned Bull to sleep with me. It was nice. Scene change, the day afterwards Kakashi had me sign some insurance forms he collected for me yesterday. Once that was taken care of he left for the day and I went off to check on my teammates and friends. Naruto was the easiest to find since he was still asleep in his apartment. He greeted me enthusiastically and swung me around. When we left to hunt down Sasuke he offered to hold my arm. How gentlemanly of you, I teased. He beamed. I bought one of those cheesy romance books girls are always reading. This is the kind of stuff that's good to do, yeah? If I want to meet this girl that not only supports my dreams but thinks I'm awesome and likes me, I gotta hurry up and become a perfect gentleman. That's right, I cooed at him then laughed. We walked through the streets with a companionable air and I felt okay. I had to smile bright for Naruto. I didn't want him to worry about me. Once I started smiling though, I found it easier to keep my smile. For moments I could forget about grief and what happened and I could enjoy the warmth and utter affection that practically radiated off my sunshine teammate. He told me about his epic battle with Gaara, how amazed he was to find a fellow Jinchuriki and how spectacular everyone else performed. He told me how he was sad about the Hokage's death. The funeral was held yesterday actually, but I didn't attend in lieu of finding clothes and because funerals were always for the living more than the dead. Hiruzen would rather see his shinobi and kunoichi moving past his death with strength than dwelling on his greatest mistake. Almost an hour passed by of one-sided conversation before we reached Sasuke's home and knocked on his front door. It took several minutes before a tired-looking Sasuke appeared. What he asked, but it came out more like a statement. We wanted to make sure you were okay, I answered, giving him a warm smile. So you okay? Fine, he answered curtly, then eyed Naruto. You finished healing then? Naruto grinned cheekily. No bandages for me. I see you still got your concussion. Sasuke's right hand drifted towards his wrapped head and he grimaced. Yeah. Is that all you two wanted? Come have lunch with us, I kinda asked. Sasuke frowned at that, then shrugged and stepped out the house. He shut and locked the door behind him and shoved his hands in his pockets before he moved to walk on my opposite side. Where should we eat? Sasuke asked. Let's have ramen, Naruto excitedly answered. Okay, I agreed easily. Sure, Sasuke relented after a moment of hesitation. It's been a while since I've had ramen. I hate that cup crap. For both our sakes I'll pretend I didn't hear that last part, Naruto chided. Sasuke sneered at him in response. I draped an arm around Naruto's shoulder and an arm around Sasuke's shoulder. Sasuke shrugged me off almost immediately but gave up after my 7th time doing so. The three of us headed off perfectly content. Perfectly okay. Scene change, the next day I trailed behind Kakashi. My eyes roamed around the mostly rebuilt street. Today I felt better. In fact, if I didn't think too hard about what happened, I almost felt normal. There was still something off though. There was a pang in my chest at seemingly random times and brief moments that I felt like I couldn't breathe. They didn't last long though, and in every instance they did last more than a few seconds. All Kakashi had to do was speak or touch my head and everything was okay again. I wanted things to be okay and stay okay. I found that if I kept smiling it made things a little easier for those around me, namely Sasuke and Naruto. So when I returned home yesterday to Kakashi's with a big smile on my face, I was a little surprised that he threw a book at me and told me to drop it. Then I started crying for seemingly no reason and he panicked and it turned into this whole fiasco that ended up with me eating several canisters of whipped creaming and sobbing into one of his shirts and him awkwardly patting my head and reassuring me that I didn't look like a hideously grotesque monster. I don't know. The point was though that he didn't want me to smile around him unless I was sincere about it. He told me flatly that it would only make things worse for me in the long run. I called him a hypocrite, then immediately regretted insulting someone I cared for so dearly and started crying again. That ended up with me having to take another bath while Pakken watched over me, Kakashi sitting outside the door reading bits and pieces of a children's stories book and me reassuring him occasionally that I would not ask the goggle gods to hurry up and let me meet Obito. In my defense, in the heat of the moment I forgot that Kakashi was supposed to think that Obito was dead. I just really wanted some goofy Tobito humor. Returning to the day though, Kakashi had something he wanted to give me. He told me to get dressed for the day and after lunch the two of us headed out. My eyes flickered about and I sped up, so I was walking beside Kakashi. He looked down at me for a moment, giving me an eye smile. I reflexively smiled back at him, which made him reach over and pat the top of my head. See? That's a good smile. My cheeks turned red and I couldn't resist smiling a bit more widely. Then he stopped short and I ran into him. Kurenai and Asuma were opposite of him and they both stopped when they saw him. Enjoying a date? Kakashi inquired harmlessly. Don't be absurd, Kurenai blustered, blushing and looking down. I'm merely picking up some dango for Anko when I ran into Asuma. Asuma scratched the back of his head. Yeah. That. Kurenai glared at him. I blinked as the scene struck me as familiar. Then I let out a gasp and my head snapped towards the nearby tea shop where I saw the Kisame. As in the Kisame. The one and only Kisame. The greatest swordsman to ever exist. The single most amazing person to breathe since the beginning of time. That Kisame. I covered my mouth with my hands, my entire attention focused in on Kisame as I tried desperately not to squeal and run over and hug him. I had to make a good first impression. I had to. Unfortunately, he seemed to sense my gaze because in less than a minute he and Itachi left and I was left slowly dying on the inside. I turned my attention back towards Kakashi, but before I could open my mouth he quickly said, "Wait for me here, don't follow." Then he was gone. Of course I followed him. Now I wasn't as fast as the three Jonin who chased after Kisame and Itachi, but I was good enough that I came in right after they broke out of Kurenai's genjutsu. I leapt down beside Kakashi, beaming at all the wonderful people around me. Sakura Kakashi snapped at me and I knew I would so be in trouble later, but I seriously didn't care at the moment. Kisame-sama, I breathed out, my eyes wide and my heart soaring. I have prepared for this day for all of my life. My name is Sakura Haruno. Kisame eyed me with a toothy grin while Kakashi began to drag me behind him. I pulled out a small storage scroll I had carried on me since the day I bought 20 bingo books for the sake of my idol. I threw the storage scroll at Kisame and he caught it reflexively before looking it over. That has a picture of you inside of it, I informed him. Please autograph it and give it back when you can. Please. Please. Sakura, now is not the time for your craziness, Kakashi warned me. My craziness isn't something to be turned off, I responded. Enough, Itachi said quietly, his obsidian eyes bleeding away into red. We won't waste any more time here. Look down, Kakashi ordered all of us. No one meet his gaze. If you look into his eyes for a second he'll ensnare you in his genjutsu. Kurenai muttered, then how do we fight him? You don't. I will. I of course never bothered to look down because I wanted Itachi to bring me into his fun little world of goodness and love. I knew what would happen if Kakashi tried to fight Itachi with his own Sharingan, and there was no way in hell I would allow anything that painful to happen to Kakashi. What kind of fangirl would I be if I let that happen? So nope. I kicked out Kakashi's back knees, forcing him to stumble backwards and lose connection with Itachi. In the same instant, I leapt over him to stand between him and Itachi, and I immediately locked gazes with him. Pain, I whispered to him, and his gaze intensified, and then holy hell, that burns. I keeled over, covering my mouth with both my hands to fruitlessly repress my scream. Welcome, little girl, Itachi greeted me, and then I realized that the world around us had turned red. It seems you are sensitive. No time, I said, in a rush. Ignore about the massacre. Ah, holy fuck, this hurts. Danzo. Root. Ah, this hurts. Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly, and he took a step towards me. Do you work for Danzo? Fuck no, I screeched. Look, I know you had to kill your family to save Konoha. Don't worry, I'm your friend, and ahahaha. I know about Shursui and holy fuck, can't you just read my memories or something? He blinked. You're chakra sensitive. Simply being inside my Tsukuyumi is slowly crippling your chakra system, and you want me to further push the genjutsu inside your mind? I gave a small whimper as the fiery pain kept intensifying. I know about the Akatsuki. Toby is Madara. Except he's not. He's Obito. I know you're good, please believe me. But right now, your brother needs help. Sasuke has curse mark. FF from Orochimaru. Combination of senjutsu fuinjutsu. Stop, Itachi berated me. How do I know the future? The pain was too much then, and I curled up into a tight ball with my eyes squeezed shut as I tried to deal with it. There was a heartbeat of silence, and then I could kinda sorta but not really hear Itachi, and I barely understood what he said. Okay. If I keep you here any longer, you will become crippled. We shall talk later, Sakura-san. Then red faded away and I fell into the water as the last bit of consciousness left me. Scene change. When I woke up, it was to Hinata holding my hand and humming a gentle tune. Achiness settled into me and I let out a low groan. What the fuck? Welcome back, Sakura-chan. Hinata greeted me with a warm smile. Naruto wanted me to tell you that he'll be sure to bring back Tsunade-sama for you, so rest up. Why, here, Hinata said, reaching at the foot of my I was in the hospital bed and handing me a medical clipboard. I analyzed it before I let out a small groan. Shit. Tsukuyumi is something else. After I handed her back the clipboard and she put it away, then the door opened up and Kakashi stepped inside. Hyuga-san, would you mind giving me a minute with my student? Hinata nodded and hesitated a moment before leaning over and kissing my cheek. I winked at her reflexively, which made her giggle before she left. Kakashi quietly closed the door to the hospital room and gave me a tired look. What am I going to do with you? Love me, I joked weakly. He rubbed at his face. Have you talked to a doctor yet? No. Do you need to? I know how to read medical boards. I understand that my chakra system is severely strained and that I won't be able to use any ninjutsu until it's repaired. I understand that could take upwards of a year without Tsunade. Good thing Naruto is going to bring her back. I don't even want to know how you can sound so confident, Kakashi muttered. Sakura, do you understand what you did wrong? You challenged Itachi. I knew what I was doing, I said confidently. If you had kept your gaze any longer, he would have ensnared you in his Tsukuyumi. Better me than you, Kakashi-sensei. That's not going to work. I only shrugged in response, not budging from my belief. My goals were accomplished. He shook his head. You need a reason to take care of yourself. You need a reason to want to be okay. You need a reason to come home and have a place to call home. You need that, Sakura, because right now I have plenty of motivation to keep living, I defended immediately. I'm not suicidal really. Not actively seeking death and wanting to live are two very different things, he said softly. I understand this is a hard time for you, and while I cannot perfectly know what you're going through, I know enough to see the symptoms to look out for. Taking on an S-ranked missing nin in place of your sensei is not healthy no matter how you spin it. You're underreacting to how much danger you were truly in. No, you're underreacting to everything. So? He pointed at me in a gesture of frustration. That right there is not okay. I've dealt with that long enough to not want my own student to go down that path. It's not going to make things easier for you, Sakura. Your emotions aren't going to magically disappear if you ignore them. Then how would you deal with them? I asked, curious. Kakashi cocked his head at me, assessing me with an unreadable expression for a solid minute before he gave a short nod. I'm going to take you to where I was originally going to take you before we ran into Itachi. I frowned at that. Scene change, I had to use a wheelchair for the foreseeable future. It sorta stunk, but I couldn't really complain. Kakashi wheeled us out of the hospital and straight towards the Inuzuka compound. It was past noon then, and no one stopped us when we strolled right in. He took us to a large warehouse-looking building in the back, and upon entering I found numerous puppies with their mothers and several kunoichi tending to them. One of them I recognized as Kiba's older sister Hana. She hurried over to us, a smile on her face. Her smile twitched for a brief second when she looked over at me. Oh. Are you still wanting? Yep, Kakashi answered with a pop. Right this way, Hana said, gesturing for us to follow her. She led us down a corridor away from the puppies and towards a quiet section of the building. She explained while she walked, our rehabilitation program is tied into our breeding program. We find that most patients work best when with the young, although we do occasionally get our exceptions. She stopped short of a gray door. If it were anyone else, no way we would even consider it, she told us, her tone somber and brusque. We know she'll be in good hands with you, Kakashi, and if you trust her to your student, we won't fight it. As long as you both understand she will never become a nin-kin. I blinked rapidly at her. Wait. Are you guys talking about a dog? What's wrong with her? She's a rescue, Kakashi responded. Open the door, Hana. Hana gave a shrug and unlocked the door and swung it open. It was a small room with a large water bowl, food bowl, plenty of toys, and a soft bed on the floor. In the center of that bed was a mass of fur and scars. Kakashi rolled me into the room and Hana closed the door behind us. The mass of fur and scars, which I realized was a brown and black puppy, started to growl at us. She backed up against the wall and I noticed one of her legs was missing. I'm not the kind of sensei who knows how to teach his students how to cope or deal with loss. I don't even know how to do that. I can't fix you, nor will I ever be able to, Kakashi admitted quietly, kneeling before the snarling pup. Unminding of how she growled and bit at him, he picked her up and started to carry her over to me. I can give you a dog though, Kakashi said as he set her in my lap. She shivered in my lap, snarling at me and Kakashi. Kakashi squatted down in front of me, a hand on the dog's back. With weak hands, I carefully began to run my hands down her back and head. She bit onto my right hand, digging as hard as she could with her gummy mouth and broken teeth. Kakashi removed his hand as I began to use my other hand to stroke her back, unminding of her grip. You're beautiful, I whispered to her, my cheeks feeling wet and cold, and I'm going to love and treasure you. Kakashi stared at my face while I continued to watch the terrified wolf pup. He nodded once and stood back up. Are you up for some shopping for dog supplies? I could only nod my head, my throat too tight to speak. I named her Brightheart. I hoped the name would aptly fit her personality in time. Scene change, third-person POV. Kisame and Itachi. Kisame let out a chuckle as he sat down on the porch of a tea house beside Itachi. What an interesting day. The sun had started to set and the duo had already managed to lose the Umbu hunting team sent after them. They decided to enjoy a decent dinner before they began their journey back to Amigakure to report to Pain about what transpired in Konohagakure. Itachi blinked slowly at his partner. Do you still have the scroll that girl gave you? Oh yeah. Kisame remembered, then laughed again at recalling the girl's plain adoration on her face. The hell was that about anyway? Honeypot, I do not think so, Itachi answered. Kisame shrugged and pulled out the delicate-looking pink scroll she tossed at him. After confirming there were no obvious traps on it, he unsealed it and a few things popped out. One was a picture of him from the bingo books blown up to fit a decent portrait. Another was a letter addressed to him, and lastly was a bundle of large blue mittens, a blue knitted scarf, a blue knitted hat, and a white pillow with a stitched shark design on it. Kisame stared at everything in his lap in disbelief. He looked over at Itachi. Oi. You had her in your Tsukuyumi, right? Was she serious? I could only glimpse at her emotions, Itachi stressed, but yes, I was left with the impression that she was quite enamored with you. A self-proclaimed fangirl. She's 12. I'm almost 30. A ghost of a spark entered the Uchiha's eyes. I'm not here to judge. Shut up, Kisame snapped, flustered. Ugh. I'm never going to hear the end of this, am I? Itachi shrugged gracefully. What does her letter read? Kisame picked it up and looked it over before sighing and reading it out loud. Dear Kisame-sama, hi. My name is Sakura Haruno and I have been a huge fan of yours ever since I laid eyes on you. I knew instantly that you were an amazing person, and I have been blessed by the goggle gods to have confirmation that you are indeed an amazing person. I know we won't have many chances to interact with one another, yet. But I want you to know that I do think of you and I sincerely wish only the best for you. I hope one day we can meet on good terms and you will allow me to shower you with all the love and devotion you rightly deserve. Please enjoy these small tokens of my appreciation. Love, Sakura. P.S. I promise I will never lie to you. Both men fell silent after Kisame finished reading the letter. This is a little creepy, Kisame confessed. Is this how you feel every day? The women who are attracted to me purely from an aesthetic point, Itachi pointed out. Sakura is fond of you for who you are. How does she even know who I am then? She can't possibly know me. We've never met and she's a Konoha genin. Itachi thought for a moment. I know the future. Only time will tell. A pause. The fuck does that mean? Scene change. I turned 21 yesterday. So here y'all go. Asterisk. Okay, so in Japan there's typically 2 separate bathrooms. One for the toilet and sink and another for cleaning and bathing. You don't get in the bathtub when you're dirty. The bathtub is for people who are clean and want to soak. The actual bathroom is like a shower room with the floors meant to get covered in water and you sit on a stool or something and you wash yourself in that room. There is a bathtub that you can then soak in after you clean yourself. In case any of y'all were wondering WTF was going on during the bathroom scene. I purposely made this chapter feel rushed and awkward. When in grief or shock, at least in my personal experience, time both seems to stop and move too quickly. One moment you're here and the next you're someplace else with only a vague idea of how you got there. Sakura's never dealt with negative emotions properly, let alone with something so awful, so it's awkward in her mind. Done with angst, I promise. We'll be going back to happy fluff, love, funny crack, and cuddles all the way up to the next time Itachi and Sakura talk in person. The third POV at the end was in hopes of bringing a smile on your face after so much angst. Sorry if it made any of y'all sad. I love you guys and I wish you the best. extra stuff in case you're still sad. Kakashi taking a shower. Kakashi reaches out to grab a towel. Sakura hands him a towel. Kakashi takes the towel. A pause. Kakashi, why am I not surprised? Sakura, okay dear. How would a gentleman flirt? Naruto, you. Your face. I like it. Sasuke, that would be about when the girl walks out. Naruto baby, no come back. Please make babies with me. Sakura, that's my boy. Sasuke, dear God, why am I on this team? In the middle of a marketplace on a mission, both in disguise as civilians. Sakura and I will always love you. Kakashi buries face in hands. Sakura drops down onto her knees. The crowd hushes, whispers, excited squeals. Kakashi is mortified. Sakura, that's why I have to tell you that your shoelace is undone. Kakashi, this is why I don't go anywhere with you. Sakura, you love me anyway. Kakashi, I categorically deny that with every fiber of my being. Now put on a jacket, it's cold outside, and I don't want you to catch a cold. Sakura smirks.
Thank you for your views, likes, subscriptions, and overall support of my ongoing efforts to bring great content to all of you. Check out my Patreon for more mature fanfiction. The link is in the description and like everywhere on my channel.